What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 322 of the Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. It's KB and Deej starting the show off. Obviously, we touched on it early in the show last week, and obviously more news has unfortunately developed from that situation where Callum Robinson, his brother Jake, and their friend Jack Carter Rhoad were senselessly killed on their surfing trip from California to Mexico. Just an unbelievable kind of like out of body feeling when you see that news, and it just doesn't feel real. Callum was truly one of the kindest human beings I've ever interacted with, and I had limited interactions with him compared to many, but the few times that I did get to talk with Callum, and in 2019 obviously specifically, he was just an absolute gem. Made a room light up anytime he was around, was just so kind to anybody he came across, and we genuinely lost one of the best people that were walking and surfing this earth, because Callum was a genuine bright light in society and brought so much to not only just like his community and to this sport and just being an ambassador from Australia to the game of lacrosse, but just as a person, like just a genuine light. And he, his brother, and Jack Carter Rhoad are going to be so missed. We want to send our best to all of their families, all their friends, and we will have the GoFundMe linked in the description, both of the audio version of this podcast and on YouTube. Um, Last I saw, Jerry Raganese quote tweeted it's hit over $300,000, which is just a small glimpse to show you the impact that Callum had on so many people. And it is just a gut-wrenching feeling knowing that someone of that magnitude, along with his brother and one of their best friends, were senselessly murdered for no reason whatsoever, as they were just trying to enjoy a trip that was going to be a memory that lasted a lifetime together. And I just it's been on my mind since the moment it happened, that it's just like, what what are we doing, in the world? And it's just such a weird feeling to know that somebody that you've had an interaction with is no longer with us.
Yeah, there's never really words to say in a situation like this. Like, you can't put into words exactly how you feel, or like there's never enough words or the right words to say to the family and loved ones that, lost someone very important, not only to themselves but to the world. The only thing you can kind of bring up is the impact and just who Callum was. Like, he completely revolutionized the game of lacrosse in Australia. He completely came and did things here in America and added a light to the game of lacrosse that we don't see often. Just someone who, is all about the sport, but all about everybody enjoying the sport, all about just life and living it to its fullest and taking in every opportunity that you get, but also taking that extra 30 minutes that they may not have to give to somebody else that needs it, or to be there and support somebody, or give the t-shirt off his back. These are all things that we either know for sure he has done or have witnessed ourselves, and the impact he's left, as you can see, not even just with the GoFundMe, but the words that are spread. It almost dampened the weekend. There was so much lacrosse going on over the weekend, but Callum was on our minds, and not necessarily in a bad way, but just in the way like this sport lost someone so important to it.
That unexpected, just like unreal moment
yeah, like, wow, the sport of lacrosse will never be the same now that Callum is not around. Not that it isn't great, not that it won't continue to be what it is or get better, but it won't be what it was with Callum because Callum is such a special person.
And I know Callum, I saw so many posts saying like he was going to be doing his best to train to be part of Team Australia for the Olympics. And I saw Jerry Raganese, who had a unbelievable relationship with Callum Robinson, um, say that pro athletics has been getting so many orders put in to either have every jersey number for a team be changed to number 10, have CR10 patches on them, have their team colors changed to green for specific jerseys to represent, Team Australia and everything. And, that's like, go and just look at any pro lacrosse player, MLL, PLL, college, whatever it may be, and you just see the posts, even if it was just, a one-time moment or just a lifetime friendship that they had with Callum. And I'll never forget 2019 when the Atlas were playing in the draft pick game and Callum rolled up in the Allen Iverson jersey to the Union Stadium. And that was like a cool moment, because it's like you see people from all over the world be impacted by people that are in your backyard. And obviously, Allen Iverson is a huge part of my childhood and my sports fandom. So to see somebody, just repping Allen Iverson like that in Philly, who is from a different country, but seeing the impact that somebody like that had on Callum was pretty cool. And just the kindest guy. And somebody recently liked one of our comments on an old Instagram post of his that I totally forgot we posted on from the pod account. It was in like summer of 2019. He was in Sea Isle City, New Jersey, and I commented, I was like, "Wish we would have known you were in the area. We could have chopped it up on the pod and like come down to Sea Isle." And it was like, damn, like it just makes you realize how short time is, and Callum is going to be missed in a big, big way. I know the PLL has announced they are going to be honoring Callum throughout the season. I'm sure opening weekend, obviously being the Atlas homecoming weekend, is going to be a big one. Um, but again, the GoFundMe for Callum Robinson, his brother, and Jack Carter Rhoad will be linked in the description. And we just want to send our best from OTB and Underground Sports to everyone affected. And just tell your people you love them. But yeah, just an unfortunate, unbelievable tragedy to the lacrosse community and the world as a whole. So all love to the Robinson family and the Carter Rhoad family from us here at OTB. And now let's get into the show. What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 322 of the award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, and of course viewable on YouTube, Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. It's KB and Deej coming at you. We got a fun, awesome show to break down. The NLL Finals matchup is set. We had the PLL draft. We had our third annual PLL college draft extravaganza stream that we'll recap as well, because we had some unbelievable moments throughout the night there. We will get into the NCAA tournament as the bracket is now officially official with the play-in game settled. And we'll talk, the discourse going online with the undrafted free agents and all that good stuff, because I do have a chrome foil hat theory going on why a certain player was not drafted, Deej. been seeing some things online, and the math kind of is mathing for the most part. So we'll get into that as well. But before we do, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at OTB LaxPod, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. We gotten some new followers in the past couple of days from a clip we put out, which is pretty cool. So welcome to all of our new followers. Let's keep them rolling. We're on that. We're trying to get to 2,000 Twitter followers and 1,000 Instagram followers before PLL opening weekend. So let's make that happen. At OTB LaxPod. You can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/OTB LaxPod. Follow Deej on Twitter at SCS_NextGreat. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the pod, as Pat Bev has said. And as we say, subscribe to the pod. Apple, Spotify, leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. It truly does go a long way for helping this show continue to grow, helps more people find OTB on those podcast apps, helps people find Underground Sports Philadelphia on those podcast apps, and our entire catalog of shows that are coming out of our network. So keep subscribing. We are so close to reaching a big milestone on the OTB feed for Spotify followers. So keep following, keep subscribing, keep leaving those 5-star reviews. We're working on some big guests coming up. I know it's been a long, hot minute since we've had some guests on the show outside of our awesome college draft extravaganza, but on an actual episode, it's been a while, but we're working on booking some guests because we know it's been a while, and, we had some bread and butter moments with a lot of guests early on, but now that we're in a flow of our new schedule and everything of recording, it'll be easier to get some guests on, and we're working to do that. So keep subscribing. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this show every week, full video episodes of every show on our network, clips, shorts, live streams, including our 5.5-hour third annual OTB College Draft Extravaganza that, Deej, I was looking at the numbies from last year's stream to this year's stream. In a matter of our stream this year versus last year being up for a day, there's already more views on this year's stream than last year.
Keep them pumping, people. That stream was insanity. It was a ton of fun. Everything did not shake out the way we thought it did. The reactions were great. Guests were great. And, it's just our normal discourse whenever you get the two of us on a live stream. 1,000 other things pop up that have no relevance to lacrosse whatsoever. But it's definitely worth the 5.5 hours.
Yeah, it was a grind, but it was worth it.
So if
we had some people become OTB canon on the live stream, which was fun. Shout out to Pacino Stan 88. Shout out to Newbie. They're now OTB canon official, which Newbie dropped some news on the heads. Another reason that you should be subscribing. Sounds like every PLL week, whether he's on the show or sending it to us and we're putting it out, we're gonna have weekly winners with Dan every single week.
Helping
for the most
you with
part.
those bets, people. Helping
bets,
you with those
boy.
bets. Make some money with us.
Dan's the best. If you're not following him at Newbie Talks on the socials, you should be. He's one of the best gambling minds out there, not just for lacrosse, but in general. And you should be following him. And I'm pumped to get him into the OTB PLL universe coming up this season. We're going to do some weekly winners with Dan throughout the year, which will be very, very fun to add to our normal pick segment, which I'm stoked. It's just that elevation of the product, and that's what happens on an OTB live stream. But yeah, we'll recap that and keep subscribing to the YouTube channel. We're at 788 subscribers as of this portion of the recording, 12 away from 800. Let's get there. Let's make that happen. And of course, we're on that road to 1,000, which all of our shows have something big planned. We'll figure out what the hell we're going to do when we get to 1,000 subscribers, but we'll make some things happen. YouTube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia and YouTube.com/@OTB LaxPod is where all of our summer vlog content is going to be, as well as clips and shorts that make more sense to be on that channel than the main channel. That's youtube.com/@OTBLaxPod. Let's get 10 more subscribers on there by the next episode. We're at 15 right now. Let's get that going. youtube.com/@OTBLaxPod. Coach Deej, what's popping, brother?
Well, as the people will see when they're watching this on the YouTube, dressed a little dapper as we're recording this. I will be leaving here for senior night. Always a bittersweet moment, saying goodbye to the seniors. I've got two, and they're both really special. One is a lot like myself. Like lacrosse isn't his first sport. He's playing soccer in college. But he's one of those kids that just plays with immense passion and heart. No matter what it is that he's doing it 100%. He's grinding hard. And I appreciate that, because that's the one thing that I can't stand as a coach. It's just not trying.
Mm-hmm.
Lacrosse is mostly a game of effort. If you try, you'll win. And he's a guy that when I put him out there, I know for a fact I'm getting 200%, regardless of how he's feeling physically. The most hours he's locked in, plays ball and goes home. Love that about him. And the other saved my career as a coach. I had a guy that was going to play goalie and then ended up being academically ineligible for the year. And he's like, hey, coach, I'll do it. I'll hop in. And 2 years later, he's gotten tremendously better and is actually really sad he has to leave the game of lacrosse. He's not going to be playing in college. We definitely looked at some avenues for him to do such. It just didn't work out. And he's just like, dude, I don't want to stop playing. I love lacrosse. So it's just going to be really hard to say goodbye to two guys that are extremely important to our team.
I'm sure you guys do, but I just don't. Do you guys have ULAX where you're at? Is there
yes, Grand Rapids, 45 minutes up. So I've definitely talked to him about possibly looking to be a free agent over there in that league, or even trying
playing too.
Yeah, or just trying to start some stuff here where we just do pickup games and just send some blast out to guys in the area and say, hey, we want to do pickup over the summer. Let's pick a day and time and let's run
do street lacrosse.
Yeah, exactly.
But you keep a stick in your hand, keep playing.
Absolutely. It just sucks that we're saying goodbye to them in this term, even though we do have 2 more home games. We play tomorrow night. So I guess tonight, as most of you are going to be listening to this on Friday, and we play again next week, which is start of playoffs. For the first time ever, we're hosting a playoff game, and we have a chance to win our first playoff game ever in program history. So a lot of first being here for this year, and I'm just really excited.
Look at you having a one-up on the University of Michigan hosting a playoff game.
Hey, they got snubbed.
They did. I agree with you.
We gonna talk about that later. No, trust me.
You can always have that feather in your cap that in the year 2024, KU had a
big
meat.
No.
Okay, Stags.
Just play that not like us. Them Wolverines ain't like us.
Michigan. Who else?
Princeton. Princeton definitely should have hosted. I think Penn State should have hosted over Georgetown. Those matchups, I'm cool with the matchup. Just flip it and have the away team host.
Yeah.
I do think Georgetown will beat Penn State. I think there's just some things that Penn State lacks within their game, which I'll touch on a little bit later. But I think Georgetown is the only team that shouldn't be hosting that will end up winning a game. Oh, sorry. Yeah, never mind. I was thinking of Maryland. I don't think they should be hosting, but I think they're going to lose as well. I think Georgetown will win, but I think Maryland will lose.
Is it me, before we get into breaking down the NLL Finals, since you brought up Kendrick and everything, is it just me, or is Not Like Us have early 2010s jerk music beat to it?
No, definitely.
Whenever I hear that, I just picture my high school, because 2009 to 2012 was when I was in high school. We had jerk teams meeting up on the sidewalks after school. It was like the Super Bowl. It was insane. That song would have fed families during that era. With jerk battles.
We had people jerking down the hallway to class. in middle school.
Yes.
Like they would not walk; they would just jerk to class.
Snap
like,
back
what
in the
are
jean
you?
loops.
Facts. Like, what are you doing, bro? And then the cat daddy came out, and I was like,
Yes.
oh my, we're not doing this.
Teach me how to Dougie.
It was bad, bro.
Bro, the jerk era was
Different.
you had to be there. You want to talk about
Literally,
you
you
had to
had
be
to be.
there? You had to be there.
It
But
cannot be recreated.
man, if they put Not Like Us in that era, America's Best Dance Crew would still be on the air.
You know, we got to send it to Jabs. Jabberwocky's doing something to this would be dumb.
That would feed families. Feed families. Jabberwocky's another thing. If you had to be there. America's Best Dance Crew is that shit. But we have a matchup, Deej. And we are going to recap that semifinals. And it is wild. It is going to be crazy. The NLL semifinals are here. We got 2 sweeps. And your matchup will be the defending champion Buffalo Bandits taking on the Young Pups, the youngest team in the league, the surprise team of the year, the Albany Firewolves. It's your 3 versus your 4 seed. The 1 and 2 go down, and it's Albany and Buffalo in a battle of upstate New York for the NLL Cup. The way it all goes down went a little something like this. Buffalo in game 1 dummied, and I mean dummied, the Toronto Rock 12-4. Made them look silly in Toronto. Buffalo fans for days in Toronto and made it a Bandits home game. It sounded like a mini Bandit land in Toronto. And then arguably game of the entire semifinals was game 1 of Albany San Diego up until the referees decided to take it into their hands, which was a bit unfortunate. Albany wins that one 14-12 as San Diego was going on a surge late in that game, had scored 6 consecutive goals, and then you get a push foul called that many people, you and I were texting about it, were stunned that the referees decided to put the game in their hands instead of the hands of the people on the floor playing the game. That was just genuinely, I think that moment shifted the series because San Diego was on this tear, and then you let Albany get possession, and there wasn't enough time for them to get Origlieri back on the floor from him being out with the 6-on-5, and then Albany gets that empty netter and seals the game. That effectively shifted just the momentum of the series into Albany's favor as they go back home. They win 13-10 in game 2, and that game got a little chippy, got a little feisty. Our guy Austin Stott's probably going to get a little suspension.
I don't know how I feel about it.
The first hit, I get the penalties, the cross check to the face. I get the penalties. Makes total sense. It was the aftermath later on in the game with the fight and stuff that happened. I don't think it'll be too much, but I do think he's probably going to miss a game. It's one of those things we talked about it with Halifax. I know it's tough in that environment and you're down in the game, but you're a veteran laced squad and you've got to be able to do your best to keep your composure to not hurt your team and have those penalties rack up. And it was just unfortunate to see our guys in San Diego go down. They had a stellar year, and we just genuinely don't know what it's going to take for them to get over the hump. You know, you smash the glass in case of emergency, and Brody Merrill comes out of retirement. You trade for Trevor Baptiste and have one of, if not the best face-off athlete at the dot for you. And you have all of this firepower offensively, from Austin Stotts to Curtis Dixon to Dane Doby to Kyle Jackson, Westberg. Like, you have guys like Danny Logan. You have just a top to bottom roster that is built to win a championship. And on paper, you'd be stunned to realize that this team has not won a championship. And whenever the playoffs roll around, they're almost like the Sixers. Like, they win in that opening round, and then the second round comes, like the semifinals roll up, and they can't get over the hump no matter who they're playing. And San Diego goes home, unfortunately, but we are extremely grateful for the relationship that we've been building with the San Diego Seals, and look forward to building that out even more during the offseason and going into next year. But the Albany Firewolves advance, and then the final game of the other side of the bracket, Buffalo wins 10-8 at home to advance to a fourth straight NLL Finals. 2019, 2021. No, 2019, 2022, 2023, 2024. We're watching a dynasty unfold before our very eyes. Sure, they lost to Calgary in 2019. They lost to Colorado in 2022. But I don't think we are talking about enough how hard it is to go through a 21, 22-week season, go through the playoffs, and get to the finals 1 year. But for this core that has been in Buffalo to do this for 4 straight NLL seasons, this is fucking impressive, to say the least.
I wish I could say it's like a little more impressive, but like it's happening everywhere, which is like almost taking away like the true accomplishment of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Chiefs have been to how many now in the last like 6 years? The Cavs and Warriors went to 3 or 4 in a row. LeBron went to 3 or 4 in a row with the Heat. It's just like everybody keeps returning. This isn't even the first time we've seen it in the NLL. The Roughnecks went like 3 or 4 years in a row. They won 3 in a row.
The Rush.
And I'm pretty sure they went another 2 or 3 years within that time span.
The Rush.
Sorry. The Rush, and then the Nighthawks.
Rochester.
Yeah.
Original Rochester.
It's happened multiple times in this league alone, and now Buffalo's doing it again. It's like, is it impressive? Yes. But like, I think it was almost more impressive when like Rochester and Saskatchewan were doing it, because you weren't seeing it as often in the NBA, the NFL, the NHL. But now we're seeing that in all the Big Four leagues as well, where the same teams are going back to the finals and either winning them or coming up a couple points short. It's like, and I'm not taking anything away from Buffalo. They're a fantastic team. They have the core. They have all the pieces they need. But it's just like, it's almost getting old now when we see the same teams win over and over. You see it across all the sports.
Buffalo and Saskatchewan before them and the Nighthawks before them more impressive than the major 4 sports is this is a sport and a league where you're practicing as a team once a week.
Yeah, that I say, and that's where I was going, is
like,
that's the
aspect
impressive
of it is crazy to think about, you know, to do this year over year over year, and you're practicing with your team or most of your team. Sometimes it's not your entire team because of flights and everything, but you're practicing as a team once a week, and it's usually the day before a game. And then you're doing everything else on your own. So it's that's what I take away as like the impressive part is just the lack of day over day camaraderie that you get in the major four sports compared to what you're getting in pro lacrosse. And I mean, it's just a testament to the organization. Like, the Bandits have invested in this team to make it a powerhouse team that, I mean, they're putting almost 20,000 people in the stands for a home game. Like, they are loading up a hockey arena that, with the success of the Bandits, you should be calling that the Buffalo Bandits Arena, not the Buffalo Sabres, if we're being honest.
Hello.
Like, the Bandits' success has been insane in our time covering the league. And it is really cool to watch guys who have become like the homies have this success. And on the opposite side, to see a team in Albany who, after last year, a lot of people left for dead. Like, they were the worst team in the league. They were that pest of a team. You didn't know what they were going to do. The offseason rolls around. Your two leaders in the locker room retire in Brett Manny and Kieran McCardle. Your two veteran guys. And it's like, this team is loaded with young talent, but they haven't won anything. They haven't won anything together. And now you're being led by Colton Watkinson, Joe Nardella, and this collective of young talent in Alex Simmons, Ty Kurtz, Ethan Walker, and the rest of those boys are on fire. And then, of course, that anchor, Dougie Jamieson, has been back to Dougie Jamieson vibes that we've seen in the past. And last year kind of looks more like just a blip on the radar for him than anything else. It's awesome this year to see kind of like the David and Goliath almost.
Yeah, that's a nice comparison. That was my next point, though, was like touching on Albany. I'm glad you brought them up. Like, I don't want to make that comparison, but it's the best one to make. They're like this year's Lions. Like, they came back, they made a few moves in the offseason and did some things to better their team, but everybody's like, okay, like, what are you actually going to do? Like, we see that you did some stuff and like we're excited about it, but like, are you going to back that up with play and like prove that we should support you? And they've done that so far. The Lions went out and they got all the way to the NFC Championship game and lost. They've made it one step further. They technically have their conference title and are heading to the NLL Championship, which creates just this thing where they have nothing to lose. No one's thought they were going to be here. They completely flipped the script from last year. They're playing not even with house money. They're not playing with any money, let alone house money. They're just playing because they have
home floor advantage,
which is
in the
insanity.
NLL Finals.
Insanity. But when you look at how they've attacked the season, how focused they've stayed, how they were able to bounce back, because they started really hot, lost a game, and then they ended up losing a few more like in succession. And you're looking like, oh, okay, is this – a lot of people like almost pushed them off then. Like, oh, okay, I think this is the moment where we get the Albany we had last year where they start to lose games and are not as good as we think that they are, and they're going to drop in the standings. And they didn't. They lost a few more and bounced right back. They got a win, and boom, a couple more came, and they started pushing back up in the standings. Albany's a completely different team this year based upon the fact that they're in the locker room. I can imagine they're in the locker room every time they're together like, hey, don't forget, everybody out there doesn't really believe in us. The only people who believe in the Albany Firewolves are right here in this building. They're right in this locker room. Maybe there's a few upstairs moving around, but if they're not wearing something Albany right now, they don't believe in us. And they're probably in there saying half the fans out there that are wearing an Albany jersey might not even believe in us right now. We have to prove that we deserve to be in the spot that we're in, and they've done exactly that. This is going to be a blockbuster series because you have Buffalo looking to retain their title and continue to be at the top and seen as this perennial team. And you have Albany coming in like, I don't know, this is my third series. Like they have no clue what's going on. They're just here enjoying it because they're playing well and they're enjoying the time with their buddies. You have two teams locked, loaded, ready to go, completely focused on one thing, and that's the NLL Cup. Couldn't have asked. Honestly, I don't think you could have asked for a better finals unless we somehow could have gotten Albany, Toronto, or not Albany, Buffalo, Toronto in the final.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the only thing that people would have wanted to see more than what we're seeing right now.
And like, I know this will sound like homery and biased, but like, you can kind of make a similar comparison to what this overall series is, where like you have the underdog type of team versus the defending champ, the Death Star, if you will, of the NLL right now. It's almost like Super Bowl 52. You had the Eagles, who nobody believed in. They have the backup quarterback in. You know, their starting quarterback, it was out. They lost players throughout the season to injury. Nobody thought that they were going to go into the Super Bowl and beat the Patriots, let alone go into going into the divisional round of that NFL playoff. The Eagles were underdogs at home as a 1 seed to the Atlanta Falcons. They were an underdog to the Minnesota Vikings. And then they go to the Super Bowl and they beat Tom Brady, and they slay the dragon and beat that dynasty team and put a blip on Tom Brady's radar. Sure, it's a little different with Buffalo because they lost the first two in this run, but they're the defending champs. People view them as, the standard almost of what you want your team and your organization to operate like. And then you have this team that is the youngest in the league by overall average age. You have, a couple veterans here and there. And then you have the head coach who has been through the mud with this team since they were in New England. And they're now battling for a championship in year 3 of being the Albany Firewolves. It's such a cool dynamic, and it's one that we haven't really had because, 2019, Calgary was a force, throughout the year, and they go in, and sure, it was a quote unquote upset against Buffalo, but they were a very talented team. Like, they still had Dane Dobie, they still had Curtis Dixon, like they were a force. 2022, the Colorado Mammoth come in. Sure, it was deemed an upset, but you look at that team, like, you have one of the best goalies on planet Earth. You have some of the best, offensive players, and they got hot at the right time. You look last year, the Bandits were the better team, and they came away victorious. This year, it is a very different type of storyline with this NLL Finals, and it's going to be very fun to watch. Both, obviously, in upstate New York. It is going to be a gritty, grueling series. You have the face-off battle, too, that's going to be elite with Joe Nardello, with Connor Farrell. The offenses can score. 2 elite goalies. I saw the tweet, too. I think Lax Mag tweeted it out. Matt Vince has played for 18 years. He's been to 9 NLL finals.
Insane. Insane consistency, yo. It's almost like he's going every other year.
That's nuts. 50% of his career has ended being in the NLL finals. That's nuts. And he was part of that Rochester, dynasty. So now he's doing it again in Buffalo. And it's so much fun to watch. Congrats to both teams. Congrats to the Seals in Toronto, too. Like, it sucks not getting over that hump for both of those teams. And, we talked about San Diego not knowing how they're going to get over the hump, but what the hell has Toronto got to do to avoid Buffalo at all costs?
Right.
Because, man, were we spot on with our Packers, Cowboys, and Phillies, Braves analogy there last week. Those two teams are so talented. They will be back. It's just a matter of pushing the right buttons, when the playoffs roll around.
And I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. They're 15-3 and 13-5. Like, they did everything they were supposed to do in terms of the unified standings. Like, you can't overlook how good they were during the regular season because of a couple mishaps within, the playoffs. I will say, game 1 of the semifinals for Toronto was just simply not good. Like, everybody should just scrub that from their memory and forget it happened. But you look at everything, the rest of the product that they put out between December 2023 and May of 2024, it's some of the best lacrosse this world has seen in that time span. Both of those teams did everything they were supposed to do. They now just have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, where is that one piece that we could get a little bit better in? For me personally, Toronto, I think it's transition. I don't think they pushed, or not Toronto, San Diego. I don't think they pushed transition enough. They have guys on both sides of the floor that can push that transition. And more specifically, they have defensive guys that can shoot and have great vision. So why are you not pushing that when you get the opportunities? And it's smart to get something in transition, or at least speed that defense up, speed up those transitions, try and find a mistake. It seems like they're very okay with playing slow and getting all 5 of their O guys out to run a solid O possession, when sometimes that's not quite the look. And then you look at Toronto. Toronto is just a mind over matter thing. Like, you have to go into a series against Buffalo and say, I'm not playing Buffalo. I'm just playing lacrosse. There's a team across from me in a different jersey, and that's who I'm playing. Because as long as they're actively thinking about Buffalo and how hard it's been for them to beat Buffalo in the playoffs and how they just can't get over the Buffalo bump, they're not going to get over the Buffalo bump. You got to just...
Can I give you an unreal stat?
I'm scared.
Toronto this year in the regular season goes 15-3. What was their overall record?
15-3.
15-3. 0-2 in the playoffs. Or no, 1-2 in the playoffs. I'm sorry. So overall, they had 5 losses this year. 4 of those 5 losses
are to Buffalo.
Were to the Buffalo Bandits.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. The amount of times we talk about how difficult it is to beat a team 3 times, because that's typically like a playoff type discussion. You know, you see a team twice in the regular season, the playoffs roll around. It's tough to beat a team 3 times. That's the shticky, radio speak. The fact that Buffalo beat them 4 times this year, the only other team to beat the Toronto Rock this year were your Calgary Roughnecks, Deech.
Big gang. I remember that game. I was so mad we won that game, low-key. I was so mad we won that game, low-key. Not gonna cap. But now we're in very elite territory.
The Toronto Rock were 16-1 against all
everyone
teams
else
not named the Buffalo Bandits. 0-4 against the Bandits in 2023-2024.
All right, Rock fans, I don't want to hear a word.
That's crazy.
All I got to say to you is 11-10. Talk to me.
16-1 against all teams not named Buffalo Bandits.
They're kicking and screaming the air right now.
Like,
kicking
that's almost as close to impossible to do. Like, the amount of simulations that you could do for this season and that be the case is like Doctor Strange looking through all the permutations to save the world in Endgame.
I like that. I like that.
That's like a 1 in a million type situation where they go 16-1 against every other team and 0-4 against the Buffalo Bandits.
That's got to be real pain.
The Bandits are like Thanos when Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America are walking up, and it's like, all your past failures, where did that bring you? Back to me.
Facts.
That's the Buffalo Bandits
facts.
to the Toronto Rock. It's insane. But congrats to both teams on a phenomenal year.
I think it's insanity. They're playing back-to-back next week.
That's the wild part of this whole thing, which you texted me as well. For everybody at home, we'll also talk more when it rolls around next week. But there has been a change to the schedule for the NLL Finals. If it does get to Game 3 of the NLL Finals, if necessary, will be played on Saturday, May 25th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, immediately following the NCAA Men's National Lacrosse Championship semifinals on ESPN2. The game will also be televised on TSN in Canada. So if Game 3 is necessary, it will now be on Saturday, May 25th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2.
Yeah, I'm super hyped for this. I just think it's going to come down to bench at this point, especially playing back-to-back. Like, if you're deep which both these teams, in my opinion, are pretty deep. Like every guy that suits up for them can play offense or play defense. They have their just preferred sides of the ball. Transition for both teams is great. Goalies, great. Coaching has been phenomenal, stepping in and making adjustments when they need it. But it's going to come down to guys that are, I guess, when you think about it, like the guys that are like 15 to 19 on the roster, those are the guys that are going to make the big impact, right? Because when you think about it, you got your top 5D, top 5O, and a couple transition, which are like your guys.
Right.
Those guys after them are going to be the ones that really make a difference. When you get a guy that doesn't get that isn't necessarily scoring a bunch, he gives you a goal and assist, that's going to be huge. You get a guy that, you know, is coming out, doesn't play a ton on defense, but has the extra energy and legs. You throw him out there, he makes a great play. That's going to make the difference. It's going to be those guys that you normally count on for a play or two that are going to make the difference in this series, because that play or two is going to be the deciding play in a matter of minutes, right? Like I've explained to my team recently, is we play 12-minute quarters, stopping clocks. That's 48 minutes. We've decided to break it up into sixes. So it's we focus on 6 minutes at a time. Let's win 6 minutes. That's basically, we're splitting every quarter in half. You play, let's look at how we do in the first half of this quarter. Let's look how we do in the second half of this quarter. Which half do we like better? What adjustments do we need to make? Boom. I think it's the same thing in terms of looking at it like, okay, let's take this maybe quarter by quarter, or maybe we'll take it media timeout by media timeout, right?
That's what a lot of teams do. They do it with TV / floor timeouts. So just from experience of being able to talk to Paul Day over the past few years, the way that they kind of operate is in like 4-minute chunks, because that's your media timeouts.
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more, depending on, flow of play. That's like a perfect stopping point. That is where I think coaches in this next round need to be going like, hey, instead of correcting what we have on the floor, let's slide this guy in here and do this, because it's a little wrinkle, and those are the kind of things that are going to give us a leg up. Or, really assessing, okay, these 5 minutes were not great for us. What can we do to change that for these 5 minutes? These 5 minutes were great for us. Let's not change a single thing. Let's do exactly what we just did. Those small adjustments, and then those guys at the end of the bench are where this series is really going to be won.
100%. We'll dive more into the actual matchups next week when the games are on deck. But before we keep it pushing, want to give a shout out to our awesome merch partners, PHI Apparel Company, the best in the game. From shirts and hoodies, you can rep OTB every day of the week. We're working on some new designs that will hopefully be up for you guys this summer. Still working to get the duck logo up, which will be our running throwback logo for Throwback Weekend. Faux show, and is kind of our mascot. Go to phiapparel.co. Check out everything they have to offer. I was just on the website today, Deej. I got a brand new Saquon Barkley Eagles shirt for all you Eagles fans. It looks pretty clean. It's in that Kelly green font and style and aesthetic, which is super clean. There's the crossover too. Now that the Water Dogs are Philadelphia's team, you want to get a Philly Dogs shirt. Plays for the Eagles. It plays for the Water Dogs. They got a whole bunch of stuff on their website that looks absolutely impeccable. You can rep OTB, though, any day of the week. Official OTB merch on PHI Apparel Co.'s website. Go to phiapparel.co so you can stand out in the crowd. And when you go to checkout, use our code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your orders. Most effective and direct way to support everything we're doing here at OTB and Underground Sports. So phiapparel.co, get your merch, and use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your merch orders. We had the NLL end of season award finalists revealed, Deej, and we were snubbed again. Wasn't our year. 1 year we'll get it. And genuinely, the year we get it, I just want to be nominated. I don't care about winning. I just want to see our name get the recognition.
I promise you, bro, I do not care about winning whatsoever.
I just want ours to be in the record books as a finalist.
I just want to be able to set up a second phone so that people can see the POV of me calling my mom and telling her that I'm nominated for a National Lacrosse League award.
Yes.
That's it. That's it. I just want to be able to tell my mom And can you imagine the pickup line that comes with that?
Hey, I'm
you
an award nominated.
You ever been with the NLL Media Person of the Year? Oh, I didn't think so.
Facts.
You can be now. No.
But for real, sure, we were quote unquote snubbed, but the 3 finalists are all friends of the program. 2 of them have yet to be on the program, but we're working on getting them on the program. Hopefully one of them next week. But very, very happy for those guys. And I guess we should start there since, you know, it is the media and those are our pals. Congratulations to Teddy Jenner, Adam Levy, and Graham Parrow. All your finalists for the Tom Borelli Award, which is the Media Person of the Year. They're clearly digging into the podcast realm, though, because Teddy hosts Off the Crossbar. Adam Levy hosts the Lacrosse Matrix. Like, hey, the podcasters are getting recognized in the NLL. It's time to give OTB a little respect on the name, I'm saying. No, but Teddy.
I think this is where we start pandering at teams. Like, hey, you know,
hey, how you doing?
You could throw us a bone and let them know we're doing some stuff.
Teddy has been incredible to me since we started this podcast. He was one of the first like national media people to like follow us, support us, give us information that we needed in terms of like learning the game, and has just supported the podcast, has been a listener of the podcast since day one. Forever like grateful for Teddy, and has just been a genuine like awesome person to have in our corner. Same goes for Adam Levy. He has been a day one supporter of this show, has been, you know, there for anything we need. And in a time where there was a moment where I was nervous about the future of this podcast way back when, and for 2 episodes, Adam Levy, I put the bat signal out to him and he stepped up and was a 2-episode co-host of OTB early on, when I was genuinely like fucked out of a co-host and wasn't sure how I was going to keep going, because at that time I had nowhere close to the level of knowledge of the game that I do now. And even then, I wouldn't say I'm an expert at the game, both NLL and PLL, but I know my way around. But back then, I had no fucking clue what I was doing compared to now. And Adam Levy stepped up in a big way. So very thankful for Adam. He does a great job covering the league for so many different platforms as well. NLL.com, Inside Lacrosse, the NLL PA, and obviously Lacrosse Matrix, and Teddy doing play-by-play for TSN and co-hosting Off the Crossbar. And then Graham Parrow with NLL Chatter. That website is a godsend, has helped us so much this season in particular. And Graham just does a phenomenal job with keeping stats up to date for everything you could ever imagine and then some. Just a genuinely awesome dude, and was the first person I ever really saw, and he still may be, that keeps a pronunciation guide for every player in the league, which needs to be normalized everywhere. All 3 of these guys are just genuinely awesome people, and couldn't be happier for the 3 of them.
First off, thank you to Adam. Without you, I wouldn't be here, because you definitely kept this pod afloat for a little bit, which we all know the story of how I ended up here. So I'm not going to drag
listen
that
to the
along.
Boston Battery episode with us as well.
The facts. But yeah, and he's also been great as far as interaction on socials and with the pod, and he likes and shares or likes and retweets almost everything we put out. And he isn't shy to comment and have some discourse with us. When we see him out, he's always got stuff to say to us, little nuggets to drop on us and such, which is amazing as well. And then I think everybody knows what we get with Teddy. Like, Teddy is Teddy, man. It almost doesn't get better than Teddy. He's great at what he does. He's an amazing voice. He knows almost everything there is to know about the NLL. Mm-hmm. And when you bring up knowing almost everything, you can't not talk about Graham. Graham literally has a stat, a note, a name, a something for whatever it is you want to ask about lacrosse. Graham has something written down somewhere for it. These 3 guys are continuing to push the knowledge of the game, which is the biggest thing. When you hear these guys talk, or you see some of their content, whether it be written or video form, picture form, whatever the case, it is spreading the best and most important knowledge to eyes that need to see it, whether it's people like us who need it to create content, whether it's people who just need to stay up on the game, or people who have no clue what lacrosse is. They're giving them the bare bones of it too. They're getting all the way down. You know, Josh Byrne has this many an assist, and an assist is when you directly pass to another player who doesn't make more than one lacrosse move to score. Like, they're giving you everything you need to know in order to grow the game. And without media people, the game is completely different. We know that looking at all sports. So it just continues to give light and something for me to strive for as I watch these guys continue to be great and give to the sport. It makes me want to keep doing what I'm doing.
100%. So congrats to those three. Your other award winner finalists, and we have a new award category this year, Deej, which I'm very happy about. Here are your MVP finalists. From the Buffalo Bandits, Josh Byrne. From your Toronto Rock, Nick Rose. And from your Buffalo Bandits, Dane Smith. So your MVP finalists, 2 Bandits, 1 Rock. Your Rookie of the Year finalists. Transition from your Vancouver Warriors, Owen Grant. Forward from your Albany Firewolves, Ty Kurtz. And forward from your Albany Firewolves, Alex Simmons. Your Goalie of the Year award, Albany Firewolves, Doug Jameson. San Diego Seals, Chris Origlieri. And Toronto Rock, Nick Rose. Your Offensive Player of the Year finalists. From your Buffalo Bandits, Josh Byrne and Dane Smith, as well as New York Riptide / Ottawa Black Bear, Jeff Teat. Your Transition Player of the Year finalists. From your Buffalo Bandits, Ian McKay. From your Calgary Roughnecks, Shane Simpson. And from the Halifax Thunderbirds, Jake Withers. Your Defensive Player of the Year from your Toronto Rock, Mitch DeSnew and Brad Cree, as well as Vancouver Warriors, Ryan Dilks. Your Sportsmanship Award finalists, Vancouver Warriors, Keegan Ball, Toronto Rock's Tom Schreiber, and Lyle Thompson from the Redacteds. Your Les Bartley Award, which is your Head Coach of the Year award, Glenn Clark from your Albany Firewolves, Kurt Malosky from your Vancouver Warriors, and Matt Sawyer from your Toronto Rock. Your GM of the Year finalists, Glenn Clark, Kurt Malosky, and Jamie Dowick from the Toronto Rock. And your Executive of the Year finalists, John Catalano, who is the president and CEO of the Halifax Thunderbirds, Mike Hancock, who is the Director of Communications and Lacrosse Operations from the Toronto Rock, and Oliver Marty, your CEO of the Albany Firewolves. These your takeaways from the award finalists in 2024.
Well, I'm going to do it like this and just tell you who I think is going to win each award. The biggest thing is Nick Rose is most likely going to win MVP. When you go the whole regular season only losing 3 games, goalie is a big part of that. And you look at his numbers, save percentage was extremely high. And hold on, give me just a sec. Here we go. Nick Rose. Oh, they only have playoff stats up. Give me just regular.
I think there's
season.
a tab to go to the regular season.
Yep, just tabbed over. He's got 15 wins during the year. He was second in goalie minutes behind Del Bianco, and he was third in saves behind Higgins and Del Bianco. So 1, 2, 3, right down the lineup. No one has a better lineup. Chris Allegrieri gives him a nice run for it. He's 2 in wins, 3 in minutes, but he's not in the top 5 for saves. And then the other on the list was what, Matt Vince? No. Jameson, Doug Jameson. He's 4th in wins. He's not on the list for goalie minutes, and he's not on the list for saves. So when you're looking at the 3 nominees, one, Nick Rose is going to win goalie of the year right there, when you look at it that way. And then 2, only 3 losses, you almost have to give him MVP, when you look at kind of how it's been given to goalies in the past in both box and in field. Low loss totals with high save numbers normally grants an MVP. Rookie of the year.
Can I rebuttal and
Of course
give you who I think is going to win?
you're gonna say Dane Smith.
No, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm going to
so
say
you're gonna
Josh Byrne.
Byrne.
While I think Nick Rose had an unbelievable year, love Nick Rose, future guest of this podcast. I've talked to Adam Levy about this a little bit too, where we both thought Nick Rose was going to be a finalist for the MVP, and he is, obviously. But looking at the stats too, and obviously last year, Christian Del Bianco wins MVP. Adam brought up the point to me where you, as the league, do you want to get kind of caught in a cycle where if a goalie has this incredible season statistic-wise, that it's an auto bid to win MVP, while, granted, Nick Rose had a great year. I'm not slighting that whatsoever. But also, look at the defensive numbers and the defense in front of him, how much of that contributed to him and the Rock as a whole having a great year, when you also look at what Christian Del Bianco did last year with what you and I can both agree with, a lesser talented defense. Why I think Josh Byrne is going to win MVP is, number one, the obvious. He led the league in points. That's my first just check mark on the list here. 135 points, unreal year for Josh Byrne. Had a 53-goal season, 82 assists. So he's doing it, both scoring and feeding, category-wise. One other thing I'm looking at here that's interesting, and this is no slight to Dane Smith, but looking at turnovers, Dane Smith was 2nd in the league in turnovers with 77, only behind Jeff Teat, who had 83. Josh Byrne, in terms of turnovers, if I pull it up here, of course, it defaults to the playoffs on me when I click the full list. If this one's to load, here we go. Regular season, Josh Byrne had 62 turnovers, which was still in the top 10 overall. Just barely edged out Will Malcolm and Connor Kiernan for missing out on the top 10. Well, he was 10th in the league in turnovers as opposed to number 2 with his teammate. So that's a differential for me, just like sifting through Josh versus Dane.
I absolutely hate the check mark of they led the league in points.
Sure.
I hate that because it's like the opposite of what you were saying with goalie. Like, oh, just because a guy led the league in points, he needs to be the MVP. No.
I'm not saying that's the end all be all.
No, but that's what it turns into. Like when you look at when somebody other than a goalie wins MVP, it's always an attackman because he had the most points in the league, whether that's box or field. I don't like that. It's stupid. Just because that guy scored 5 goals in one game, they won that game probably because his defense held them to less than 5. Like, just because a guy can score doesn't make him the best player on the field. And in my opinion, if a goalie is having an unreal season like that, you 1,000% give him MVP. Because yes, he has a defense in front of him. Yes, he has offense scoring. But at the end of the day, he has to make the stops, which I think, especially in this certain scenario, Nick Rose is more valuable. Like, That's what I hate about the MVP conversation is it doesn't turn into who's most valuable out of the group. It turns into who's the best out of the group. And that's not what the award really is. Who is most valuable to their team out of these three? I mean, first off, with two of them being on the same team, that should automatically eliminate them two. Nick Rose is more important to the Rock than Josh and Dane are to the Bandits, because the Bandits have names. We talk about them all the time, and we rattle off 7, 8, 9 names in a row, not just because we know them and they come on our pod, but because they put up the numbers and are doing the things they need to do to be effective in the game. There isn't another goalie like Nick Rose on Toronto. If they lose Nick Rose, Toronto's a completely different team. But Buffalo could lose Dane Smith or Josh Byrne and still be pretty close to what they are. I'm not going to say they're not different, but they could still be pretty close to that team that has them both. If they that's like a losing Dane but still having Josh and someone else. That works. Losing Josh and still having Dane and someone else, that works. Toronto loses Nick Rose, it's not going to work.
So here's the other just reasoning for me with Josh Byrne. 53 goals, 82 assists, 135 points, led the league. Had 6 power play goals, 22 power play assists. So you're contributing 28 points on your team's power play. He had 1 shorthanded goal, 75 loose balls as an attackman, 62 turnovers. He had 14 caused turnovers and scored 53 goals with 218 shots on goal. Shots on goal wise was 5th in the league in shots on goal. Caused turnovers, for his position, pretty solid. Turnover wise was limited, to top. He was in the top 10, but much less than some of the other guys who are in that category of, prolific goal scorers and stuff like that. So he's able to take care of the ball, which I think you and I both agree is important. And just his overall play on the power play was huge. And I think in this season in particular, you look at what Josh Byrne did for the Bandits, and sure, they're playing for another NLL championship this year. They're going to the finals. They were the 4 seed. They go 11-7. I think if you remove the value that Josh Byrne's season brought to the table and how many games he was, in his bag for and carried that team to victory in an off year by most standards of what we have known the Bandits to be, they're potentially not in the playoffs. You look at what Toronto does, and I agree with you. You take Nick Rose out of the conversation, they're a different team for sure. But I think with what Josh Byrne did on a night in and night out basis for them, where he was the guy putting the team on his back. He's an OG backpack boy on this podcast. If you know, you know. There's multiple games where Buffalo could have lost, and that cost them a chance to even go to the postseason, let alone being a top 4 seed, let alone going to the NLL Finals again. And I think that's the value that I put in what Josh Byrne's season this year was for Buffalo. And I don't know in particular, I'm pretty sure the awards are based on who's nominated. Obviously, there's a couple of teams that didn't make the playoffs, but I'm pretty sure it's all regular season based. It's not anything to do with the playoffs. But I just look at what Josh Byrne's body of work was this regular season for this particular Bandits team. And I think if you remove him from the equation, the value of this Bandits season goes in the tank. And they're not even a blip on the radar in the postseason, which is crazy to think about. But your justification for Nick Rose is completely there as well. And it's no slight to Dane Smith either. What Dane did this year, over 100 assists, is crazy. But I think it will come down to either Josh or Nick. Now, when it comes to, it's an interesting wrinkle this year that there's an Offensive Player of the Year award as well, rather than just the flat-out MVP, where you have Josh and Dane along with Jeff Teat nominated. That will be an interesting discussion.
I think that's where Josh gets his flowers, right? And I like that they added the Offensive Player of the Year, because now it allows you to accurately look at MVP as just MVP, because now because 9 times out of 10, those guys that are in the MVP conversation are going to be nominated for their respective positions award.
Mm-hmm.
So now if there's a guy in a situation like this where there's 2 guys who could actually win it, you give it to the guy that you believe deserves it more, and then you still make sure the other guy gets his flowers over here. It's not quite the same flowers, but it's still respective of his season. And in my opinion, like, Nick had way too good of a season to not give him MVP. I would be okay with him not, like, it's weird. I would be okay with him not getting goaltender of the year because he got MVP. That works for me. If you want to give somebody else goaltender of the year because you gave Nick Rose MVP, that's fine. I don't see that happening because he just had way too good of a season. But I could also see a situation where, like, I think this allows other positions a true chance at MVP. Because now if you have a D guy up there competing for MVP, he's going to get a legitimate shot, because both him and the offensive guys that are on this list are MVP guys, but they're also offensive/defensive player of the year list guys as well. So everybody kind of has more shots at getting their flowers. I think that's a great wrinkle that was added. I'd take Alex Simmons for Rookie of the Year. Simi has been absolutely fantastic for Albany. Not even just playoffs, but also in the, like, all regular season. He was kind of a go-to guy for them.
With Jeff Teat's rookie scoring record, which I don't know if he broke it or came close, but I know he was close for a lot of the year. So,
and then if I don't give this to Nick Rose, goaltender of the year, I would give it to Chris. Not that Doug didn't have a great season and he wasn't a complete turnaround. Oh, I think he played good last year, but the situation they were in, where they were almost always playing defense, had a very shell of the team they expected to have. I think that really kind of dampened their season last year and made this season look a lot better. But when you look at the position that Chris was in, coming in behind Frank and coming into this team that's expected to just be leaps and bounds better than everybody and make it to an NLL championship, he wasn't one of the reasons why they didn't get there.
And he's like the youngest guy on the team.
Yeah, he played phenomenal all year and stood on his head. Came in and was, I won't say just as good as Frank, but it was not much of a drop off from Frank to him. He was fantastic this year. So I would give him the nod over Doug for that reason. Offensive Player of the Year, I think, goes to Josh Byrne. Dane Smith is right there. Jeff Teat is obviously right there. All 3 of them were phenomenal on the offensive side of the field. But like you said, Josh was just that guy where the backpack was on him. Team was completely on his back, shoulders, head, legs, every part of his body, and he just trudged through like a running back carrying 5 guys through the hole. He's like, I got to do it, and he did it. So I think I would give him flowers in that circumstance. Transition Player of the Year is the hardest one to pick. I don't know what I don't think I'm putting Ian in there. I just think this is really hard between Simpsy and Withers.
I'm leaning Withers.
I want to lean Withers, but I think, like, this is one of those picks.
You want to know, like, why I lean Withers? Simply on one stat alone, and it's just so glaring.
That's where I was going. Is I don't think transition is really a stat position.
But here's the thing with Jake Withers. He's in that unicorn realm of the face-off guys where he stays on and either runs down the floor and scores, or he can drop back on D. So he's in that realm of him, Trevor Baptiste, Nards. Like, we talk about Jake Withers in that category, obviously. The crazy, like, dirty work he did this year. You're top 5 in loose balls.
See, no, hold on. That's.
But here's why. Ready?
Doesn't. No.
So Nards is 167. Matt Gilray is 174. Trevor Baptiste 177. Zach Currier 184. Jake Withers, 282. And the way that
it's skewed though.
But the way this year that he was more apt to go full length of the floor and was scoring goals, was dropping back on defense, was staying on the floor more than I can remember him staying on the floor post face-off in years past. Like, for the first 2 months of the year, people were talking about Jake Withers being in the MVP conversation. I think his season was unbelievable this year, and that's why I lean Jake Withers.
I want to, but I don't think this is a stat position whatsoever. I think this is one of those, like, the weird small things that had an impact on the game, just like the way they push transition, the way they're able to slow a team down and force them to get into the offensive side of things. Those kind of pieces, how thinking on their head and subbing off directly after a shot they defended so that you can get a leak out on offense. Like, I think that's where transition player truly gets like this award, but I think it gets lost in like the face-off guy kind of mix in there, where it becomes like a loose ball stat award, where like if you're leading loose balls and you have a couple goals and assists, all right, we'll give it to you. And like, no, the transition is so much more than just picking up a few loose balls and having a couple assists or a goal on the year. It's a full position for a reason.
Can I dish out all of Withers' stats across the board for you, though? Because some of the stuff I didn't even realize, and it's pretty impressive. So Jake played all 18 games, scored 7 goals, had 9 assists, so 16 points on the year, 57 penalty minutes, which led the league in the regular season. He had 1 power play assist, 282 on the loose balls, only 18 turnovers, 28 caused turnovers, so he's plus 10 in turnover differential, which we should make that a stat. 12 block shots, 19 shots on goal. And then he won 360 out of 485 faceoffs, which is a 74% clip.
See, that's what I'm saying. 360 faceoff wins. More than half of those faceoff wins are, and I wouldn't even say, I say probably 200 of those loose balls he got are because of his faceoff wins, which is why I say like that stat is skewed. It's not fair because faceoff guys are right there with a one-on-one GB most of the time with them and another faceoff guy. So yeah, their numbers are going to be a little inflated in that stance. But looking at Shane Simpson's season, he had 28 points, 40 loose balls. It's just hard to, that's hard to argue with. Only 10 turnovers. It's just the only thing that doesn't look great is, the loose ball comparison. And I just don't want this award to become like a loose ball award, because I don't think that's fair.
Which also, shout out Jake Withers, Joe Nardell, and Trevor Baptiste. Those 3 guys were the only 3 players to win over 300 faceoffs this year.
That's still that's a ton.
That's crazy.
Crazy respect to them.
And Jake won 74%, Trevor won 71%, and Nards won 68% of his faceoffs. And TD went 72% and was like right there, won 278 of his faceoffs.
Defensive player of the year, I'm going to give it to Mitch DeSnoo out of Toronto. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory.
I'm curious if that one ends up getting like the split treatment from whoever's voting, because Brad Cree is in there and people like do that way, and then it boosts Ryan Dilks, who had a great year for Vancouver.
I could see Ryan getting it. I would say Mitch or Ryan. Brad was good this year, just like not good enough in my opinion. But right on the outside, there's a reason he's on this list. I just think Mitch and Ryan are a step above him. I think we all know where I'm going. Sportsmanship award. I don't think that has to be said, but I'll say it anyway. LT4, Lyle Thompson of the Georgia Swarm, is by far the sportsmanship award winner every time it's presented, because he's Lyle Thompson. Yes, he's really good at lacrosse, but he's Lyle Thompson, the most like humanitarian person I know. And then Les Bartley Award. I think this one's literally self-explanatory. If it doesn't go to Glenn Clark, I might jump off a bridge. And the only kind of person that it would be somewhat acceptable to go to instead of him would be Matt Sawyer, because they only
I think
lost.
that's how it's going to go. I think it's going to go
They only
Glenn,
lost 3
Matt
games.
Sawyer, Kurt.
Yeah, they only lost 3 games.
And that's
so
no slight to
Clark.
no slight to Kurt either.
Love Kurt, but
he also won it last year.
We know the circumstances he went through with Vancouver this year, but I genuinely think Glenn Clark deserves that.
I think he deserves GM of the Year award too.
Maybe
he pushed all the right buttons, this offseason to have the guys in there. Made the trade for John Wagner during the year, who has been a revitalization for their defense, and has navigated his way, because I'm pretty sure he took over the GM role going into this year. So he was part of their draft and everything. And, he's pushed all the buttons correctly in terms of a GM hat that he's had to do for this team.
Yeah, I'm not super beholden to GM. There's no this award isn't, I won't say a huge deal to me, but
who do I think is going to win it? Probably Kurt.
I wouldn't be surprised if any of them won it, in my opinion.
Well, someone's got to win it.
Right. Literally someone, but it wouldn't bother me no matter who it is.
I did bring up the Defensive Player of the Year stats. I think this award is way closer than we think, too, just as a collective from a stats perspective. Because each guy did one thing.
We got to stop looking at stats for
but that's gonna. I'm looking at it from what the voters are gonna do.
I know,
not what we do.
And no, not even just us. I need voters to stop doing it too.
I understand.
That needs to be across the board. Everybody needs to stop looking at stats and look at gameplay. Watch a full game before you decide to vote on somebody. And then
I think a lot of them do, for who we know actually votes. But here's the fun part of comparing them.
What I think happens though is they have this idea okay, I've been watching all year and this guy's been great to me all year. And then all of a sudden they look at his stats and they're like, okay, well, maybe this guy's a little. No, dude.
I think
you said what you said for a reason. Stick with that thought.
I think the NLL and the PLL, pro lacrosse in general, is very different in that aspect compared to the major 4 sports. I get where you're coming from with that. I think lacrosse award voting is a lot different than that. We also, I know I just said it, we have to make turnover differential a stat. We're gonna make that OTB stat of the year, because I feel like that's an important thing to look at for transition and defensive guys. Ryan Dilks, of the 3, led in caused turnovers. He had 46 compared to just 7 turnovers. That's pretty fucking good. Mitch DeSnew had 38 caused turnovers. Brad Cree had 36, where Mitch DeSnew had 21 turnovers. Brad Cree only had 10. The other stat that I was looking at, and Mitch DeSnew, from an all-around perspective, had the most points. He scored 21 points this year versus Ryan Dilks, who had 6. Brad Cree had 10. And then loose ball factor, Ryan Dilks had 102. Mitch DeSnew had 164. Brad Cree had 132. And Mitch had the most shot on goal opportunities. He had 29 shots on goal, had 16 block shots. Ryan Dilks had 14. Brad Cree had 17. But Ryan Dilks went 1 for 1 at the face-off dot. What you know about it?
Hilarious.
Imagine if that was the deciding factor. 100% at the face-off dot.
I doubt it.
It wouldn't be, but imagine in some other universe, someone's like, "Oh, he's getting my vote because he went 100%. Look at these other face-off guys; they didn't go 100%."
Yeah, that would be hilarious. I guess Oliver Marty for Executive of the Year. I really like what Albany did this year. I think they got some solid crowds out. And I think a big part of that is how the executives run things top to bottom, how they market the team, what they bring in. And I think Albany did a great job off-season wise of putting together the best product to serve not only their fans but themselves as well. And then Tom Borelli, low key, I want Graham. Like no slight whatsoever to Teddy or Adam, but it's kind of like want someone not so big to win. And that's not necessarily like tied to the league or the large companies. Like we see it in the PLL too. Like the media guys are always like their guys or the people who are like tied to the ESPNs, the NBCs, like that kind of stuff. Like let's get somebody like Graham who is doing this because he loves it and he wants to, but like that's simply the only reason. Graham's not getting paid for NLL chatter, and if he is,
as far as we know,
right? And if he is, it's probably not a ton. You know, like it's enough to put some money in his pocket, have some spending money, and call it a good day. But he's not raking in. You know, like it's not his career. It's just something for
as far as we know.
As far as we know from what we're seeing, it's not his career. It's something he does because he enjoys it. It's almost like a hobby. That would be amazing to see, not only because we do this as a hobby and it's something that we enjoy and we want to get to that point where we're getting paid for it, but because it gets other sports journalists and other guys that aren't necessarily tied to these large companies a feeling of, I can do it. I can get nominated for an award. I can win an award. They see the work I'm putting in, and it makes them want to go a little bit harder. Like giving the award to the people who aren't quite your guys gets more of your guys out there. It's kind of weird, but it's like if they give this award to Graham, he kind of becomes an NLL guy. And then more people are trying to be like Graham, which gets more people trying to get to become an NLL guy, which has more content about the NLL being pushed out. So I think the media person award is one that they can tinker with to kind of help grow the league and the sport. But I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever to see it go to Teddy or Adam.
I'm looking at the history of the Borelli Award just to see past winners and nominees. First time Graham's ever been nominated.
Nice.
So your past winners for the Borelli Award, which started in 2005, Mike Corrine from the Toronto Sun was your winner. Sal Majorana from the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Ty Pilson from the Calgary Sun. And then we had a three-peat of Paul Tutka, or Tutka, I apologize for the mispronunciation, from NLLinsider.com from 2008 to 2010. Bud Bailey won in 2011 from the Buffalo News. Our guy Jake Elliott, when he was working for the Minnesota Swarm, we can say that name. 2012, Steven Stamp in 2013 for IL Indoor. Bob Chavez for IL Indoor in 2014. Steve Ewan from the Province in 2015. Teddy Jenner for IL Indoor in 2016. Jake Elliott for TSN 1410 and Vancouver in 2017. Steven Stamp for IL Indoor in 2018. And your other finalists that year, which was the first year they kept track of finals, were Teddy and Jake Elliott. 2019, our guy Tyson Geik won for Lacrosse Flash. And Bob Chavez and our guy Jordy was nominated in 2019. 2020 was Craig Repchinski for the Rochester Nighthawks, along with Jake Elliott and Teddy Jenner being nominated. 2021, the season was canceled. 2022, Pat Gregoire, our guy, won it for the Halifax Thunderbirds. Jake Elliott was nominated, as well as Tyson Geik. And then last year, Teddy wins it for TSN, and Pat Gregoire and Adam Levy were both nominated. And that was Adam's first nomination. So Graham first nomination, Adam second nomination. Teddy has won the award twice. And we will see how that plays out there. But hopefully all of them win it, because that's how I feel about our friends. I think Executive of the Year, love Oliver Marty. He's a follower and listener of the show. I also think there's a good chance, and I would not be surprised whatsoever if John Catalano wins it for the Halifax Thunderbirds. The way they sold out multiple games this year, had like the youth programs out and a whole bunch. Like they had a great, just like overall, like from an executive standpoint, a great job of delivering the product there for the Thunderbirds. And sure, it wasn't the overall success at the end of the year that they had hoped for. But I think he did a phenomenal job with just everything they were doing from an operations standpoint. So it wouldn't shock me whatsoever. But let's move to recapping that college draft. Each a wild night, 5.5 hour stream from the boys, and 32 new guys. Well, I should say 31 this year. Are going to the PLL.
31. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, 30. It's 30 because of Dylan Hess.
Right.
It's 30. So I guess there's 2 mystery relevance this year. But no, the draft was absolutely fantastic. Our stream extravaganza we talked about a little bit was insane. But I do want to say, listen to that Boss 3 Battery episode because your boy called out the top 6 on point. Called out the top 6 on point. Get with your boy. Nobody saw the Brandau and Woodward picks coming though, so
no, especially the Woodward pick.
I didn't get that.
But yeah, a wild draft. I think each team got significantly better, and we'll recap team by team or round by round, but there's some wild storylines, and it was a great draft and arguably the best draft ever. All right, Deej, so the PLL 2024 college draft is in the books. We obviously had our 5.5 hour college draft extravaganza, which we'd be remiss not to give thanks to our guy, our intern Chase, aka the PLL Pipeline, for joining us all stream. Our guy Newbie Talks, Dan Alexander, for joining us all stream. The boy, the man, the myth, the legend, the D3 hero himself, Connor Eck, joined us for the entire stream. We had Pacino Stan 88, aka Brian Knows Lax, join us post stream. We had Phil Shore join us post stream. We had head coach and GM of your California Redwoods, Nat St. Laurent, join us after the draft. We had your head coach and GM of the Carolina Chaos join us post-draft. We had the ear canal of head coach and GM of your Carolina Chaos, Andy Towers, join us post-draft. You were on your Professor X shit with Andy Towers because you could only tap in with him cerebrally for some reason. It was an awesome night. Shout out to everybody that was in the comment section all night long. We had damn near 1,000 people tuned in cross-platform. So shout out to everybody that came through. Shout out to all of our new followers and subscribers that came through. It was a night for the books. It was like one of the most fun nights of content I've had in a long time for this company. And, you know, I feel lucky and have fun doing content all the time, but like being able to just like chop it up with your internet friends, with your homies and people who support you and care about like you doing your job the best is really fucking awesome. And also we had the support of all the supporter groups that came through. Big ups to the Boston Battery, the K9 crew, the Denver Rough Riders, and of course joining us the entire night and just stayed in the stream. You know, we checked back in and everything, but the Utah Arrowhead came through. They were incredible. So shout out to the supporter groups that were able to make it for our stream. It was a blast and a doozy of a time. But Deej, the draft is in the books. What were your takeaways overall once our draft extravaganza stream came to a close for all 8 teams and all 32 picks?
This might be the most complete draft we've ever seen in any sport. I feel like this was a draft across the board where almost all 8 teams, well, I won't say that. Across the board, every team went and got what they needed. Every team went and got all the holes they needed filled. Pause. The biggest thing is
I apologize. It might look like I'm looking down at my phone right now. This is a little bit of breaking news and breaking the fourth wall. DJ had to go coach, obviously, while we were recording earlier. So we paused everything. A lot has transpired over the last, I don't know, 3.5 hours, 4 hours. I'm currently DMing with NFL superstar Sean Merriman on Twitter to break the fourth wall a little bit, because this of all things, Deej, is worthy of this. Sean Merriman's agreed to come on the podcast with his son who plays lacrosse. You and I as NFL fans are geeking out right now.
This is crazy, bro. This is crazy. This is crazy. I'm not telling anybody. If they don't watch this pod, they're not gonna know.
Yeah, and they're not going to know.
And I'm just gonna all of a sudden one day be like, oh, by the way, I put out a pod yesterday with Sean Merriman. They're gonna go, what? I'll be like, yeah. I got to talk to Sean Merriman. And if you think I'm cap, go look for it on YouTube. He's right there. In the thumbnail and everything. So I don't want to hear it. We're the best out here.
The fact that his son, which I'm gonna see because I clicked on his son's profile like briefly to see what grad year he is. Here he is. Justin Merriman. He's class of 2029.
Oh my god. So young.
Do we have first dibs on like we knew about Justin Merriman first? That's our guy.
I would assume. Yeah.
Youngest guest in podcast history, Justin Merriman.
Insanely young. He's 8th grade. 8th grade. Hopping on the pod.
Dude, confirmed. Sean Merriman is going to come on the podcast with his son, Justin.
This day cannot get any better.
What the fuck is happening, bro? If you're not subscribed, you should be subscribed right the fuck now.
Send this to everyone you know. Everyone.
Holy shit.
Get them subscribed right now.
And this is not the only former NFL player that's agreed to come on one of our shows today.
Hey, USP.
We told y'all we're going to the fucking moon.
We're past the moon, bro. We're past the moon.
We got our own orbit right now. I am levitating.
An entire gravitational
I'm like that
pull.
goalie that homie deuced on, levitating for no reason, but I got a reason. Shout out Diggs.
Facts. But yeah, no, seriously, like I think everyone went and got everything they needed.
Mm-hmm.
Every spot, every position that had some depth problems, or maybe you lost a guy in free agency or you traded someone away. Everyone went and went behind and got a guy to replace who left out. And there weren't too many surprises in this draft. There were a couple, but for the most part, it went chalk how we all kind of expected. Not necessarily like the exact order,
especially early on, probably like the first 2 rounds.
The first 6 picks were chalk.
You called it on the Boston Battery podcast, which if you haven't listened to that, go check out the show. We hopped on with those boys. It was a blast. They joined us throughout the entire stream too. They were great. They're awesome. They're doing awesome work. So go support them, especially if you're a Cannons fan. Like those are your guys to hit your wagon to.
Absolutely. They know their stuff and they're good and they want to get the entire community of Boston involved. So if you're into it, get over there and check those guys out. They're well worth the time. They're putting in a lot of work. But yeah, they brought it up and I was like, the chances of Pat Cav dropping to the Cannons are extremely high, just based upon the fact of need. All of the teams ahead of them, all 4 of them, because there were only 4. Atlas had 2 picks, picked by need.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go back and look, Chaos and Whipsnakes did not need an attackman. So they passed up on Pat Cav, and he drops to 6 because it would have been complete insanity for Atlas to go ahead and take Shelley at 2 and then take Pat Cav at 5. When you have only one goalie really on your roster. You have Drake Porter, but like it's always been up in the air.
Let's be honest, both goalies on that roster right now are on 1-year deals as well.
Right. And I mean, as far as Drake Porter goes, it's been up and down since you drafted him. Sometimes he's there, sometimes you don't put him on the roster. You know, all of this, like every year it seems like you re-sign him to a 1-year deal instead of extending him long-term. So to not pick a goalie when you aren't trying to sign either one you have long-term would be insane. So of course he fell, but then after that, that's when it got a little weird. Water Dogs were kind of that first surprise with their first round pick. Nobody saw them picking.
Everyone thought Coach Tierney was going to go defense first.
Yeah, nobody.
And he even said it. They thought about taking Kenny Brower with the 7th pick.
Yeah, and then I said it during the stream. Like, it doesn't surprise me that Tierney went attack, because when you look at his Denver squads that he recruited back when he was doing NCAA ball, it was heavy offense and midfield.
And let's not forget his new assistant, that's also his son-in-law, coached at Princeton. And if I'm not mistaken, has Brandow been at Yale the entire time? So
Yes,
he
sir.
coached against Matt Brandow while he was coaching guys at Princeton. Kind of makes sense. He got a first-hand look at how good and lethal of a scorer he can be. And I'm pretty sure Coach Tierney's going to trust his young coaches, like he said in the release when they got hired, to go and get a guy to add to that offensive onslaught that they have already is huge. And we talked about it on stream as well. Like, who knows what the situation with Kieran is, long-term. He's obviously 31. He's only signed through the end of this year. So we'll see, but that gives you a safety net almost, with a guy who can step right in and be a lethal goal scorer for you in this offense.
I love the Shane Knobloch pick for Chaos. We expected Brennan O'Neill to go 1, right?
Thank goodness Pseudo didn't reinvent the wheel.
You telling me, bro?
Did the correct thing and made both of us not look like we were on crazy pills.
Dude, this draft, if he would have chosen Shelley, would have been pure insanity. I think that would have flipped a lot on the head, and I think some people make some irrational decisions because of that pick. So, once again, thank you, Sudan, for doing your job correctly. And then the biggest surprise of the first round was obviously the Archers pick at 8 with Mason Woodward. I'll say, the more that I think about this pick, I see some of his clips, I watch a Marquette game. Phenomenal pick. Phenomenal pick.
I forget who said, somebody on stream said it with us. Like, Brian said Marquette wasn't good, but he was.
Oh, he was absolutely insane all year. He's going to come in and be one of the top cover guys right away. He reminds me a lot of Will Bowen. When he came in for Chaos out of Georgetown, great cover guy right away. Phenomenal, eye for the game, great talker. I see all of that with Mason Woodward. And then he's great with his stick. He doesn't throw unnecessary checks, waits for the perfect time, sets up his checks, ball's on the ground. And when it's on the ground, he's coming up with it. It's going to be in Mason Woodward's stick, and they're off in transition. I think that's going to be insanely good for the Archers, who already like to run up and down, and they like to use their poles in that transition space. No Jared Connors anymore. Granted, you have other LSMs, but his offensive, like his stick skills, will allow you to use him in multiple ways. And it kind of just ticked off that piece in everybody's brain in the draft to go, maybe I should bite on that guy that nobody thinks I should bite on. It's going to be worth it. If Scott is going to, or excuse me, not Scott, if Chris is going to come out here and just draft a kid that most of us didn't have on our board, I might as well draft a guy I got on my board that nobody else does. And then I think we saw some of that in seeing some names like Peyton Cormier not get drafted, Jake Nason. I think
I have a theory about Cormier. The more I think about it, and the more I think, because we talked about it on stream as well, we were like, who did Bates think was going to take Mason Woodward that he felt it necessary to use his first round pick? The more and more I think about it, the more and more I think Pseudo was going to take him with the first pick in the second round.
There's a possibility there, but like the only reason I don't
like that, like that's how I put it in my brain of like how Bates was thinking. Like,
right.
I'm going to go and get him here because the guy behind me could also use this guy, and then we're not going to pick again until 13, and he also has another pick before we pick again. So I'm going to get my guy now that I know is going to be guaranteed off the board by the time our next pick rolls around.
Yeah, I low-key think it was a little bit of a mistake, though, letting Sudan and the Outlaws get Pacino. We'll see kind of how that turns out. Pacino is going to be great in the league, I know for sure. He's a guy that just has that demeanor to him. He's got the size to do great, but he's also got the stick skills, the mind, the effort. Pacino's going to be great. But I think kind of Bates looked at it and was like, maybe Pacino doesn't quite fit our locker room. Because that's something I ask a lot of coaches about in terms of the regional and the geographical location of guys versus picking the guy for your team. Most of them said, like, if we can find a guy in our geographical area that fits the team, sure. But our main standpoint is making sure that the guy that comes into our locker room doesn't change anything about our locker room. They're able to seamlessly fit in. And I think that's part of what altered this decision for Bates was he feels like Woodward slightly fits in a little bit better in his locker room than Pacino does, which allows Pacino to go over to the Outlaws.
And I think Mason Woodward fits more in the gap left behind by the retirement of Matt McMahon in that defensive spot to pair alongside Warren Jeffrey and Graham Hosick.
Absolutely. I'm looking at something here. Okay.
And genuinely, like, looking at it, like, we could look at this draft like 4 years from now and the second round of this draft be just as effective and like dominant as the first round.
Round 3 is the only round that we didn't have more than one, or we
round
didn't
3
have
was the run on attackman.
Yeah, but we also didn't have a school double up in this round. It's the only round we didn't have at least one school double up. We got Notre Dame in the first round. We have Georgetown and Duke in the second round. And then we have Hopkins in round 4. So I think a lot of schools were able to put out some really great guys. We did see a lot of repeat schools out here, but those teams are absolutely stacked. When we look at college ball, going into the second round, my biggest eye popper was Alexander Vardaro. Not that he isn't good, not that he won't fit in great with the Cannons, but you look at some of the guys pulled in 3, pulled in 4. Couple of those guys could have gone against Vardaro. I don't mind maybe taking a TJ Malone there or a Garrett Degnan, a Levi Anderson. Those guys could really come in and be attackmen that get moved up top and play mid. And they would have been a great move for Cannons and stretch that out. But Vardaro fits their system very well when you look at the way he plays. So it's kind of like the one unexpected pick that we didn't see coming, but was very fitting. Much like what we saw with Woodward in the first round. They went and got a guy that maybe nobody was necessarily pressed about getting, but it's more about getting the guy you want to fit your system at a position where you know for sure you can get him, even though you may want to wait on him.
And we said this round featured potentially 2 of the biggest steals of the draft. And sure, it's the second round, but Kenny Brower falling to 15 and Dyson Williams dropping to 16. Those 2 guys have the ability to dominate in this league for a decade plus. And I think they both went to teams that fit their skill sets to a T and will fit in those systems for defense and offense perfectly for them. And I brought it up on the stream, let's not forget Dyson Williams was the number 1 overall pick in the NLL. And sure, it's box versus field, but Dyson Williams is also one of 9 players in Division I history record 200 plus goals. This dude is an all-around beast of a player, and Chris Bates just added him to that offense that's featuring a ton of box guys as well that have that switchability capability that can fit his style of play as well, and him be comfortable moving right in. I think the Archers getting Dyson Williams at 16 is one of the sneakiest, perfect fits and dream scenarios for a player in this draft.
The more I think about it, the more I look at it, the more I envision what this summer could possibly look like for this team. It may sound a little biased here, but I low-key think steal of the draft is actually Josh Zawada round 3, pick 3.
I love that pick too.
I low-key think that's the actual steal. When you look at how it's going to allow them to set up their offense.
With how barren that offense was
right
coming into the draft, and you add
you got the
teammates.
Right, you got the second highest scorer in Michigan lacrosse history in Josh Zawada, who's playing with Brennan O'Neill at Duke right now and is absolutely manning that offense. Like, if you watch a Duke game, there isn't a possession unless it's a fast break where it doesn't touch Zawada's stick. And Zawada initiates a ton in that offense. So now you're bringing both those guys back together and without really taking any time off from each other. And it allows you to put Brennan O'Neill in the best position that I think he should be in. And the more I think about it, I think you leave Cross down low and you leave Wiz down low and you run Brennan out of the box with Zawada at X. Because no offense to any short stick or LSM in the PLL right now, but I don't feel confident in any of them guarding Brennan O'Neill. And that's not because they can't do it and they're not good enough, but the man's just toasted Worlds. So if nobody could stop him in Worlds, I don't see anybody stopping him in the PLL. Because a lot of those guys play in Worlds anyway. So to put him in a position where he's going to be absolutely fantastic as a mid, because if you get lucky and you run him on at the right time, you're putting him against a short.
And he's on the team with one of the best close defenders, so he doesn't have to worry about going head-to-head with JT Giles Harris unless it's in practice.
Exactly. And
also former teammates.
Pulling up their roster real quick.
Right, because B.O. was a freshman when JT was there?
Yes, should have been. Like, wow, this is insane. Because now, right, you put him on that first midfield line, which I feel like you kind of have to. He's probably out there with Sam Hanley and Justin Anderson. Who do you pull? Who do you pull? The answer is wrong every single time. Justin's way too fast to leave him with a shorty. Brennan's just way too good. And Sam Hanley's just way too big. You have nowhere to actually put your pull. And then if you double pull, now you're giving either Cross, Wiz, or Zawada a shorty.
Which everyone has also been bringing up, like, the switchability that this offense can have now is where you can also run Wisnauskas out of the box. But everyone has said it should be Zawada at X.
Yes, 100%. Because not that he's a quarterback. He can play on the wing. He can play elsewhere. But he's most effective at X. Moving him somewhere else is kind of like you drafted him for no reason. You're taking away all of his true potential. But yeah, I really think that's going to be still the draft when we look back at being able to take a guy that good in round 3 to complete your offense. Because when you look at it, at that point in the draft, the only thing they were missing offensively was an X attackman. You draft Zawada, your offense is now complete. And at round 3, pick 3, it's insane that you can complete your offense with a guy like Zawada.
And then everyone's loving the Levi Anderson pick to the Woods, you and I included.
Yep.
I think it's a great pick. He's one of a few players to get drafted twice.
Facts.
He joins an elite group. What's it? Jeff Teat, Levi Anderson, a couple others. Nat brought up a couple of them.
Yeah.
But joins that prestigious group. I love that pick, and I love the scouting story behind it because one of Nat's former players is a coach at St. Joe's. I love that pick for them. Marcus Hudgens to the Dogs is an unreal pick in the 3rd round. Brian loved it, which made me love it even more. And then newest member of the all-name team who didn't have a photo, they didn't have highlights, and we may just have to get his jersey, is Towson defender Colby Bars.
Yeah, you saw me when that name got got announced. I was like, yep, I'll name right now. Give it to him. He's at the top of the list. Colby Bars is an insane name, especially for a defenseman. Lock him up behind the bars.
We have like Ajax Zapatello, insane name. It's like not basic, but Graham Bundy Jr. is an elite name. And he's going to the perfect team aesthetic to fit his name, going to the Outlaws. Kenny Brower is an elite name. Josh Zawada is incredible. Colby Bars. Like, we have at least 5 guys on the all-name team in this draft. And we're not even talking about Mr. Relevant with pick 32, who I think is also a great name.
Very relevant.
The prophecy came true. Nat gets Chase Ireland, the new water boy for the Redwoods.
Facts, courtesy of TD.
That allegedly they reached on. Courtesy of TD. We've known about this for 2 years?
A little over a year. At least I have. I don't know.
Well, the initial seed was planted, we should say, not with specifics.
Yeah. The initial seed was planted 2 years ago.
Quarterfinals 2022.
I got specifics
last year.
Last summer in Cincinnati at a tournament that I happened to run into his kid at.
He was at the top of the list. It was him and Liam, and then obviously when you get a chance to draft Chris Gray with the 5th overall pick, you do that.
And you know what? I think he had Chase above Liam the entire time. Because I remember asking him about that when I saw him at the tournament in Cincy, and I brought up Liam. I was like, oh, so like Liam, right? Like that's the move in the draft this upcoming year. And he goes, well, there's another guy too, like Chase Early. He's good. And like he didn't really like even acknowledge like Liam. Like, I mean, obviously.
And I'll bet it even shifted more when the Notre Dame guys retired / left in free agency. And it's like, all right, it's a new era of culture.
Yep. But yeah, I think he was sold on Chase long before this season even started.
We get Adam Poitras going to the Whips, brother of Boston Bruins rookie. I don't know his first name because fuck the Bruins. But that's cool. Having, 2 brothers in pro sports is pretty sweet. Cole Kastner, though, we got that exclusive on why, how, when that pick came to be. We put the clip out on our socials, so definitely check that out. I love the pick. As soon as we found out all that information, you had brought it up before Nat joined us that you didn't think he was going to be pursuing the basketball career a la Pat Spencer.
I was locked in on the draft. Bro,
you were like Zach Galifianakis at the poker table, bro.
Facts. Completely loaded and locked. Like almost everything I said either came true or was like a perfect prediction for what someone was thinking. Insane. And I should have just did the draft myself. They should let me host the draft. I could have just did it myself.
The Woods got a 6'7" defenseman with the last pick in the draft.
Insane. 6'7" is insane.
Yeah. That dude's fast.
Strong, great stick skills, great lacrosse mind, insanely athletic. I mean, he's good at everything. He's just good.
So here are every pick per each team, and go check out the PLL pipeline on Instagram. Our guy Chase, our intern, put a graphic out of the complete college draft class list. Deej, I'll read off. I'll go draft order. You tell me your grade for that team's draft. So the Outlaws get Brennan O'Neill, Jake Pacino, Graham Bundy Jr., Josh Zawada, and then with their last pick, they took Luke Weirman from Maryland, face-off athlete. Your grade for the Outlaws.
Biggest A+ that I could possibly hand out. The only thing I personally would have changed about this is I would have gone with Stathakis or Naso over Weirman, but they have their reasons for picking Weirman, and it may be something I just don't know about. They have a lot more access to these guys than I do. So it just may be something that they feel separates him from the rest that fits better with the Denver way of things. But I personally would have gone with probably with Stathicus, especially because he's a local guy. I'm not really sure exactly where Stathicus is from, but he's playing at Denver, so he's used to the area, used to the elevation. People know him there. It's a great way to tie the school of Denver to your team some more, because I know there's already some guys there, but it just really ties that in and takes some of those Denver fans away from Philadelphia. A lot of Philly guys got some Denver guys, both from the old Outlaws and also from the Pios. So I think Stathicus would have been a great way to kind of get them to come over to Denver, but we may see Wehrman turn out to be the perfect guy for them. Like I said, there's just something I may not know about that piece, but I definitely give this an A+ based upon them going out and drafting on their needs and solidifying somebody for every single one of their needs.
Yeah, I think the only other thing we said would have been like another defenseman for them to draft, just because of the age of Mike Manley and Bernhardt. But I agree, like slam dunk of a draft from Pseudo and company. We go to Mike Pressler and the New York Atlas Deej. They go Connor Schellenberger, Liam Entenmann, Jake Stevens, who we didn't even really talk about on here, but for everybody out there, he's right-handed Zach Currier. And they also got Tyler Carpenter with pick 26, defenseman from Duke. So it's Shelley, Entenmann, Stevens, and Carpenter.
Oh, for
the Atlas.
Yeah. Shelley, Carpenter,
Entenmann, Jake Stevens.
Entenmann, Stevens. I really like this draft too. I'd probably give it an A. Obviously, you go and get Liam, because not that you needed a goalie per se, but why not take the best goalie in the drafts when you can? And he's going to be a generational talent. And then you get a generational talent at pick 2 with Shelley. We know exactly what you're going to get with that guy. He's going to be an awesome ex-attackman that can push the issue and score, but is also looking to feed first. Stevens, like you just mentioned, right-hand Zach Currier, the guy can literally do it all. But the weird thing about it is he is a like Zach Currier like guy on D, where he can play very solid D, pick up a ground ball, push it, and just play solid. But then like get him over on the offensive end and he's Xander Dixon. It's insane. Like the guy can cut, finish inside, he can dodge, rip on the run, plant and shoot. Like it doesn't matter. The guy just puts the ball in the back of the net. To have two scorers like Stevens and Xander when you have Teat and Shelley, insanity.
And Eric
pure
Law.
Insanity. Yeah, and Eric Law is still there. Like it's just pure insanity in terms of the way
and Brian Costabile re-signed in free agency.
The way the ball is going to whip around in that offense is going to be crazy. And then finishing everything up with Carpenter down at D. Like you said, they could use a couple of D guys just to like really get things solidified down there, but they do have a couple guys already, and I think Carpenter really fits their mold with what they have there already.
We move to the Whip Snakes. They go Ajax Zapatello. They had no second-round pick. Then they go TJ Malone, who everyone is dubbing the steal of the draft at pick 17. Steven Zuppi from Villanova. And then Adam Poitras with pick 27 from Loyola, Maryland.
Zuppi was obviously the one we didn't see coming. We knew they were going to draft an LSM. We just didn't really know who. And wow, I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot with this one a little bit. I'm not sure Zuppi's the guy I would have gone with. Maybe I go with Roy, forgot his last name, out of Boston.
I know Staggs has
he was great
connections at Nova, so that probably makes sense as to why they went there. He scouts at Nova all the time.
I say that the thing about like these picks from our standpoint is they're all like subjective for us, because we don't have the same information they have. So outside looking in, it's like I probably wouldn't have gone with that guy, but based off the information Staggs has, he's like, this is the perfect guy. Or I would have gone with AJ Macario out of Denver. Great kid, stick skills, pushes the issue, and is almost a lockdown defender when he's in space. So that's something I would have looked at, but Zupi's probably one of those Stags picks where he just knows what he's going to get from that guy based off prior knowledge. And then we talked about Poitras a little bit and his family's history in terms of sports. Having a brother playing professional hockey is a pretty big deal. So he's going to be able to step into this realm and provide something the Whipsnakes haven't had before. I'd probably give their draft a B+. And that's just based upon the Zupi pick. I think that if they pick Macario or Roy, I'm more likely to give them an A or an A+. But I don't think this was a bad draft whatsoever. It just isn't on the par of everyone else.
We go to the Carolina Chaos, Shane Knobloch, Eric Dobson, Ross Scott, and then the stash pick of Dylan Hess in the 4th round.
I give this one an A as well. When you look at Chaos's roster, mid and attack is where they're losing everybody based off of, different reasons. A lot of guys playing box worlds and that kind of stuff. You got to fill that back up, especially when you're expecting to score a lot of goals. And then you look at the D side of the ball, all those guys are coming back. You got Will Bowen, you got Jack, you got Jared
Newman, you
have Troy, you have
Johnny
CJ,
Surdick.
You have Johnny Surdick. Like, you're loaded down on D. Your D mids are coming back. Geddes, Resh, Ian. Who's the other one? I feel like there's one more. I can't think off the top of my head.
I'll pull it up.
There might not even be another one. Glick.
And then they have Perkovic
and
listed
then
as a short safety midi right now.
And Perk just made his way over. So, like, you're in a spot where the D side of things is good. So you got to go, when you can get Ross Scott and Knobloch and Dobson first 3 rounds. I mean, AT was looking at the 4th round like, I don't even care. Let me
commit to the bit.
He literally just threw a dart at the board and was like, it's Dylan Hess. Sounds good. And walked away.
Fits the narrative.
Literally. So, like, they had a phenomenal draft. They were able to get and he, came on the stream and explained, like, they had everything sectioned off by rounds, and they had a list of guys, and they had guys at the top, and they managed to get their top guy for every round, which you almost never do in a draft, regardless of the sport.
And told us that they would have taken Shane Knobloch #1, which last year he also told us they would have taken Will Bowen #1, and look how that turned out. Will Bowen, if we did a redraft of last year's draft, probably the #1 pick in the draft.
Facts.
Let's go to the Redwoods, where they were supposed to pick at 5, but they did not have a pick until pick 18. They go Garrett Degnan, Levi Anderson, Chase Ireland, and then they move back in and they get Cole Kastner as the stash pick for 2025. How do you feel about the Woods, Deej? Let's also not forget, if you want to put it into that formula too, effectively took Chris Gray and Jared Connors as well with draft picks from this draft. But actual 2024 draft class, those are your picks.
I mean, we talked about Levi being a steal at pick 5. Degnan's going to be absolutely amazing, whether he plays attack or mid. Chase literally was needed.
And you got a position of need in the 4th round.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then you go and get Cole after you trade for the pick. Sure, he's going to sit a year, but that kid's going to come in and be a top, 6, 7, 8 defenseman in weeks. Like, literally weeks, he's going to step in and just be good. So I think they did a great job. I'd probably put them in like the B+, A- range as well. I think probably A-. I think they're slightly better than what we saw from the Whipsnakes, but like it wasn't like over the moon or anything. but it wasn't bad. It was kind of just like middle of the road. It was there. It was good. You got all the positions you needed. You got great guys at those positions. But yeah, just a really solid draft that filled the spots they needed.
So what was it again? I'm sorry.
A-.
And we go to the Cannons. They go Pat Cav. They go Alex Vardaro. They go Scott Smith. Most picks the Cannons have had in the PLL era.
Ever. I mean, we talked about it ad nauseum with the Pat Cav pick and how well that's going to be with him playing with his brother again and all that good jazz. So there isn't a ton to say there. I talked about the Vardaro pick and how well he fits into their system as a dodger and a shooter up top in the midfield, and how that was a little bit of surprise there. And Scott Smith, anytime you pick a guy out of Hopkins, you know what you're getting. There's a ton of history there. And in order to get a look and a roster spot at Hopkins, you got to be a legit guy. Not saying they're the best in the country, not saying they're, should be winning the title every year, but they go after certain guys that know how to play the game. And Scott was amazing on the defensive side this year. We'll continue to see it through the college tournament, but this was a very well done draft, and I would probably give them an A- as well. Not because it didn't fill any holes or anything, but like
Nobody picks of any team.
Yeah, fewest picks, and then like Pat Cav is the only thing that like super screams out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard. Like everybody else had like 2 or 3 picks that were like, yeah,
bang,
that was the perfect guy for you.
Yeah.
Whereas like Cannons, it's like, I love the pick for you and how it fits into your system, but maybe you could have gone with this guy that could have done that same thing. But still, very good draft.
And we go to the Philadelphia Water Dogs, Coach Tierney's first draft. Matt Brandow, Kenny Brower, Marcus Hudgens, and Michael Boehm.
I give this an A. When you look at Brandow and what he's going to bring to that offense, insanity, pure insanity. The dude just knows how to get the ball in the back of the net, whether it's coming out of his stick or somebody he passed to. He puts points on the board, and I don't expect that to stop in the PLL when you look at who he's going to be playing alongside. And then you pick up Kenny Brower. Awesome pick to add to your defense. The defense just keeps getting better. One of those
you had a first-round grade on, too.
Right. One of those rich gets richer kind of things there. And then you add Marcus Hudgens, who's also phenomenal with his stick and just knows how to play. Great, solid, fundamental defense. Rich get richer, but like we don't know how many of these guys are going to play on this Water Dogs defense right away because it is so loaded. And then Boehm, also another guy who simply just knows that how to put the ball in the back of the net, whether it's coming from him or another guy. He dodges hard and gets to the spot he needs to get to. He's going to be able to catch and shoot. He can dodge, move it, whatever the case may be that you want to use this guy for. Boehm is perfect for every stance, considering he is Michigan's overall leading scorer and is related by law to the Michigan's MCLA leading scorer who married his sister. So
you get that with the second to last pick in the draft.
Insane. So I give them an A as well. I wanted to give him an A+, but I feel like maybe one of the D picks was a little bit of a stretch. And
I felt like Marcus Hudgens is like, he's talented. Don't get me wrong. It was a pick for the now to eventually capitalize on for the future.
Yeah, and that's what I like, and that's what I did like
smart,
about it.
like because you don't know what future draft classes are going to hold, and if you can get a talent like Marcus Hudgens in the third round like that, and can kind of teach him the ways of your defensive system, and have him learn from the Eli Gobrecks and the Liam Burns and the rest of that defensive crew, and coach him up at the pro level to get him ready for when those guys eventually retire. I think that's a smart do now, capitalize later move for Coach Tierney.
Yeah, a great move, and I think it's going to
I
work
view
out.
Michael Boehm kind of like that too.
Yeah, Boehm isn't going to play a lot these first couple of years, but when he gets in, he's going to be just crazy. Just crazy.
Final team, the defending champions of the world, the Utah Archers, go Mason Woodward, Bo Pedersen, Dyson Williams, Colby Bars. And then they traded the final pick to the Redwoods, obviously, and received a 3rd-round pick in next year's college draft.
A+. 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 You go and make a crazy move in the first round and grab a guy that's going to be phenomenal for you based upon how your team runs and how you play in the defensive strategy you like to use, and is an absolute ground ball vacuum. Hoover was made about this dude. They like, hey, you seen Woodard pick up a ground ball? That's how our vacuums need to pick up dirt. Get on it. Get on it. And then you follow that up later.
Are we just gonna call him Big Hoove this year?
I'm down for it. I'm so down. All right, and you come back in the draft, you pick up Bo Peterson, who a lot of people may not know played his first 3 or 4 years with Princeton as an offensive midfielder. Transfers to Michigan in his grad year and plays short stick D-mid. That means this man is built for the PLL. Built. Because if he makes a stop on D and gets a cause turnover, see ya. He's sprinting. And if you don't step up to him because you're worried about one of the attacks scoring, he's going to put it in the back of the net. Making it in the back of the net. So that's a phenomenal pick there, because he's going to be effective on both sides of the field. You pick up Dyson Williams. Hello. Number 1 pick in the NLL draft. Amazing stick skills. Can finish slickly inside. Can still dodge if needed. Plays tough. Great pick there. Arguably a steal of the draft. And then you get an all-name guy in round 3 in Colby Bars.
Bars.
Can't tell me this isn't an A+.
We'll probably make a graphic for it. We should compile our collective our Squire 6's steals of the draft, because obviously Colin Squires was a steal in his draft. But we should compile the top 6 steals of this draft, which will be very fun. But there it is.
So much fun.
Those are Portal Jones's draft grades, and if you missed out on the stream, it is still on our YouTube channel and will be there. Go watch it. It is so much fun. A lot of jokes, a lot of laughs, and a good time with the boys. But Deej, let's head to bracket season to wrap this thing up. But first, a word from our friends at Kenwood Beer, because we had no beer money picks this week. Talk about Kenwood Beer here. It is a refreshing light beer, the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia, just 4.1% ABV, only 120 calories and just 8 grams of carbs. That is now available, Deej, in the first state. It's available in Delaware now.
Okay.
Right. So if you're in the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and now Delaware areas, you can grab yourself a Kenny. And you can also go to the Kenwood Beer storefront, Deej, and check out these awesome shirts.
Ooh.
That's just the front. It's business in the front, but it's a big time party in the back.
Yeah, Kenny. Yeah, Kenny.
Beautiful shirt. It's like a cream color as well. It's not white, which is nice. It'll be nice for the summertime. Goes perfect. Perfect outside shirt, hanging, playing cornhole with a Kenny in hand. You can also go to the Kenwood Beer storefront and get the pint glasses that are absolutely beautiful. KenwoodBeer.com. Check out the Kenny Finder. See where you can get it on tap or at liquor stores in your local markets, in those markets we mentioned. Must be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. And, of course, you guys already know Portal Jones is brought to you by our pals over at Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. From the sunglasses to the blue light glasses to the prescription lenses, Tomahawk Shades is making sure your eyes are protected and looking good. $25.8 for a fraction of the price of the big eyewear companies. Deej and I are wearing Tomahawk shades on the road all the time. He's wearing them on the sidelines. I'm wearing them when I'm announcing and watching my alma mater play against Bryce Young's squad at home. And I'm wearing the blue light glasses literally all the time when I'm editing. Sometimes I'm wearing them when I'm driving, like when it's like that dusk kind of moment. It's great for the eyes, protects them. You guys can get your own, fill up your carts, get everything you need, especially with summertime, pretty much right here. It's ready to rock and roll. We're only a couple weeks away from Memorial Day. Let's fucking ride, boys. Download the Tomahawk Shades app in the App Store, Google Play Store, or go to tomahawkshades.com. Fill up your cart. Use code USP at checkout for 25% off your order from our pals at Tomahawk Shades. That's tomahawkshades.com, or download the Tomahawk Shades app and use code USP at checkout for 25% off the best small batch eyewear in the game. It's bracket season with Portal Jones. Deej, the bracket is here. It is official. How we feeling about the 2024 college lacrosse bracket?
We will touch on D1 in just a second, because that's where all the good stuff is. Hopping into where all the real ball players play, D3. I'm a D3 hero, and so is Connor Eck. Let's get into this tournament action, though. First round started yesterday as we record on Thursday, Wednesday the 8th. Pfeiffer over Center, 13-12. Illinois Wesleyan over Aurora, 14-10. Lake Forest, 12-10 over Transylvania. St. Joseph, Connecticut over SUNY Poly, 13-2. And Scranton, 10-9 over John Carroll in overtime. St. Mary's, Maryland, 16-8 over Farmingdale State, which is going to set up second round action starting tomorrow, or today, as most of you will listen to this on Friday. Hope, winner of the MIAA. Thank you for beating Albion, by the way. I did not want to see them play win again. They are going to have one of the toughest games of the second round. They're going to be taking on RIT at noon. Oh, that's at noon. I'm going to be here. Say less. Watching that during work for sure. Denison and Babson will take off or take battle at 3 p.m. on Friday. Just those two games. Second round continues on Saturday. Scranton over Dickinson. RPI over St. Mary's, Maryland. Dickinson and Scranton. RPI St. Mary's, Maryland. Plymouth State, St. Lawrence. Illinois Wesleyan and Tufts. Those all start at 12. Pfeiffer and Lynchburg at 1. Bowdoin and Grove City, SUNY Geneso, Middlebury, Stevenson, Union, New York, St. John Fisher, and Wesleyan, Connecticut, all starting at 3 p.m. The Pfeiffer-Lynchburg game is at 1. St. Joseph's, Connecticut will take on defending defending champs, Salisbury, 3:30. Cabrini and Christopher Newport, Lake Forest, Washington Lee, both at 4 p.m. Swarthmore and Endicott at 6:30. Stevens and Roanoke at 7. That's going to be the first two rounds of the D3 tourney for you. Getting into D2 tourney, first round started yesterday on the 8th. We are number 3 Limestone over number 6 UND, 16-13. Number 4 Pace, 16-10 over defending runner-up number 5 Mercyhurst. Number 3 St. Anselm, 16-6 over number 6 Bentley. Number 4 Lewis, 11-10 over number 5 Maryville, Maryland, which is going to set up battle for them as their quarterfinals are going to be on Sunday the 12th. Number 1 Adelphi will take on number 4 Pace. Number 2 Lenore Rhine, who is the D2 champ from last year, will take on number 3 Limestone. Number 2 Mercy will take on number 3 St. Anselm. And number 1 Tampa will take on number 4 Lewis. All those games 1 p.m. on Saturday. Way to have a chalkboard for us. 1, 2, 3, 4, both sides of the bracket there in D2. That wraps up first and second round there. And now we are here. D1. Albany bested Sacred Heart 13-7 to set up a battle with defending national champs and number 1 seed Notre Dame. That's going to be Sunday at 5 p.m. You also have Duke and Utah on Saturday at 2:30. Georgetown, Penn State, Sunday, 2:30. Maryland, Princeton, Saturday, 7:30. Denver and Michigan, Saturday, 5 p.m. Virginia, St. Joe, Saturday at noon. Syracuse, Townsend, Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Johns Hopkins, Lehigh, Sunday at noon. Looking at how things will progress through this one, we'll only do this with D1. I got Notre Dame beating Albany. I've got Georgetown beating Penn State. I've got Michigan over Denver, Syracuse over Townsend, Virginia over St. Joe's, John Hop over Lehigh, Princeton over Maryland.
I was talking to Christian about that portion of the bracket, Virginia, St. Joe, and Hopkins, Lehigh, because obviously Final Four's in Philly and it's hosted by Drexel, and he works for Drexel's athletic department. We said, how hilarious would it be if the 2 Philly schools pulled the upset on a road to Philly?
That would be
at St. Joe's versus Lehigh.
That would be insane. Insane. I put my money on St. Joe though in that game over Lehigh.
Yes,
100%.
And I think St. Joe is more apt to pull the overall upset than Lehigh over Hopkins.
Yes. Yes. Duke over Utah, obviously. I got Notre Dame over Georgetown. I got Duke over Princeton. I've got Syracuse over Michigan, as much as I don't want to do that.
Brian, you heard that? Pacino staying at 88.
Because I definitely was giving you a whole lot on the stream.
Putting the bat signal out.
I swear. I will not pick this game just yet. Hop in Virginia. May the best man win. May the best man win. That's it there. I think Notre Dame beats Duke in the semis this time, as they faced off in the championship last year. And I think the winner of John Hop Virginia beats Syracuse. Sorry, Brian. And regardless of who comes from the bottom, I think they lose to Notre Dame. I think we get a repeat champion in Notre Dame because they've been absolutely phenomenal this year, beating the best talent. And they only lost to Georgetown by 1 in overtime because of an awful decision by a short stick to throw a check while playing great, phenomenal defense. And since then, they've had absolutely no slip-ups, in my opinion. None of the games have been particularly close, and they're playing phenomenal ball. So I think they're going to end up repeating. And if I had to pick a champion D3, Salisbury, obviously, until they decide to lose. Yeah, because they have an amazing route to the championship. They have to play St. Joe. They get the winner of Endicott and Swarthmore. They would get the winner of either Lynchburg, Pfeiffer, Washington Lee, Lake Forest. And then they have to face either RPI, St. Mary's, Grove City, Bowden, Dickinson, Scranton, Middlebury, or SUNY Deniso. I think they can beat all of those teams in the top half. I think what they don't want to run into is a Christopher Newport or RIT, a Tufts in the championship game. That's where it's going to get rough for them. But I think Salisbury repeats as well. D2 champ is almost impossible to pick, if I'm being honest. Lenore Ryan has a solid shot to repeat. Tampa has looked very good this year, and so is Adelphi. So I would say it's probably between one of those three. But who's to really tell in terms of D2?
I know Christian's pulling for Tampa because it's his alma mater.
I didn't know he went to Tampa. Okay.
Yeah. If you had to pick a different team other than Notre Dame to win, who would you kind of sprinkle on?
Maybe J-Hop or Virginia. Shelly kind of talked about it on a platform he was on earlier this week, where he said like it's just a different feeling when you're down in Virginia and playoffs come around. They practice different, they feel different, they play different, they prepare different, they watch film differently. They're about winning in May. He said, he brought it up, he's like, when I was like first getting here as like a freshman, they told us, oh, we don't lose in May. And he's like, what? Like, you know, it kind of didn't dawn on him. And then he got to practice and was like around the team for a May. And he was like, oh, this is what they mean. And teams like that are just different.
Mhm.
When you can turn it up that extra notch just because it's the playoffs, it makes all of a difference. I like them to make a run. Duke obviously can make a run if they decide that they're able to beat Notre Dame. Penn State's a tricky team, especially since they're unranked. They probably have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And then I don't think we can ever really overlook Syracuse. They had some really good games this year where they beat some competition that people felt like were better than them. So it's pretty open field in terms of who I truly believe can be good. The only team I felt was like genuinely like overranked was Maryland. I don't think they should have been a top seed, I guess, to host the game. But that is my personal opinion from the outside. All understood at why they do have one. As you know, you look at their schedule, it was absolutely loaded. They played the best competition in the country. And they don't have, like, they literally don't have any bad losses. All their losses are quote unquote good losses where it's not bad to lose to a top 5 team. It's not bad to lose to a top 10 team, especially when it's only by a few goals. They're not really getting blown out in these games either. The Maryland or the Notre Dame game was a little bit of a stretch. That one got out of hand toward the end, but realistically, they're battling with everybody. So they could make a run. I just don't like them being seeded. I feel like there are a few teams, personally Michigan, they beat them, and it's been almost 1,000 days since Notre Dame or since Maryland has beat Michigan in lacrosse. So I think it's kind of a slap in the face to Michigan, and we'll probably be pushing them as they definitely, in my opinion, should have been hosting one. And there are a few other teams that were unranked that probably could have hosted a game as well.
Anytime I hear somebody say it's been, all I hear is, yeah, it's been 1 week since you looked at me.
Screaming.
I mean, best of luck to all the teams, obviously. And obviously, best of luck to listener of the pod, Joey Spallina. Want him to have a great tournament, obviously, for the brand. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to be in Philly for Final Four weekend again, doing the same thing we did last year, doing the content thing. We didn't even bother applying for credentials this year because we knew what the NCAA was going to do. They apparently don't think we are worthy of them, but hey, we get better content not being in suits and ties and in a press box during Final Four weekend in my city. So it will be a fun weekend. We're going to do a ton of stuff in the city and do some really great content. So if you're going to be in Philly for Final Four weekend, hit us up. Let us know. We'd love to link up. We're working on some very fun stuff with a bunch of fun people for that. So stay tuned for that. There was no one-on-ones this week, so nothing to react to from that. But yeah, leave a comment on YouTube if you heard the breaking news that is going to happen. I know this is a long episode. There's a lot to break down on this episode, so probably good that there wasn't one-on-ones this week for our sake. But thank you to everybody that tuned into the draft stream. Shout out to all of our guests. We're gearing up for another year of covering the PLL. The summer is going to be, I'm putting out, it's going to be one of the best summers we've ever had as a pod. So get on board if you're not already, which means you should be following us on the socials at OTB Lax Pod, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, OTB Lax Pod across the board. Follow DJ at SCS_next great. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the pod. Deej, let them know.
Subscribe to the pod, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Follow all our pods everywhere on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, Anchor. Wherever you get your podcast, we are there. Subscribe, leave a rating, please, especially on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We would love a rating on YouTube as well. Those are places where we get those direct analytics. They're coming back to us. And if you're listening, tweet back at us or comment on something so we can, one, bring it up on the pod and talk about it and get you your flowers for interacting with us. But two, it's so much more fun when we can have off-pod discourse with our, not necessarily just our fans, but lacrosse fans in general who have something to say, and we can bring that up on the platform and push it. But seriously, the more people that subscribe and pay attention to what we're doing, the more amped we are to do this stuff, the bigger we get, and the more cool things we have coming our way. We're tied in with a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of cool things, and the more reach we get, the bigger and better things that are coming. So we appreciate and thank that you like and subscribe, and you share and tell everybody you know to like and subscribe as well.
Yeah, we got some big meetings coming up in the next week, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. We got a lot of big things coming. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@undergroundsportsphiladelphia. We're at 788 subscribers. Let's get to 800. Let's get to 900. Let's get to 1,000, and then we can go plaque chasing to get that 100K subscriber plaque. And of course, subscribe to the Outside the Box podcast YouTube channel, youtube.com/@OTBLaxPod. That's where all of our summer vlog content is going to be, starting with Final Four weekend. So you don't want to miss out on anything we got coming content-wise. We are stepping up our game as much as possible. Chase is wrapping up his semester at school, so he's going to be hopping on the pod, doing a bunch of content as well across the socials. He's going to be linking up with us on PLL weekends. It's going to be a summer for the boys, for the girls, for the moms, the dads, the brothers, the sisters, your cousins, your uncles, your aunts, everybody. It's the summer of everybody. It's the summer of OTB. This has been episode number 322 of the award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, and of course viewable on YouTube, Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. For Deej, I'm KB. Enjoy a weekend off of NLL. Enjoy College Tournament. We'll see you back here next week, getting ready for the NLL Finals, more college, and that much more excitement for the PLL season. Plus, we might have some guests next week. So
just maybe.
We'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, we're getting the heck up out of here. Peace.
Peace.